the axioms that they are attempting to maximize with their behavior are in stark contradiction to the outcomes of the axioms that I would like to put about.
You have to say everything like that. Why can't you just talk normal?
I do think we're in the preliminary stages of a genocide.
Are there any queer Yankoids here?
I don't know if a civil war is the right word. There's certainly going to be violence in this country during my lifetime.
Send the Twitter autists. Go, go, go.
When that happens, I want people to be able to take shots at them from apartment windows.
I'm not going to go out and start shooting Republican politicians because they did that.
Whoa, I didn't say that. It would be legally unwise for me to say that.
What about if you're a black trans disabled woman?
This is what I mean.
You're just wrong.
No,
you know how?
No, I'm not. No, I'm
Yes, you're
absolutely not. They're different from us morally. They're a different type of human, a worse type.
Eunuchs, yeah, they stank of piss. Did you know that? What was the name of that gay Nazoid? Wasn't he in Africa or something?
If a liberal hears those two things and sounds no difference, they deserve to die.
Oh, I just lost it, man. What's going on? I'm gonna watch the Vaush thing, okay? Right, so loads of people told me to watch this. Apparently Vaush is popping off about conservatives being evil. So let's have a look and see.
How you doing?
Wonderful. I'm doing just fantastic. Yeah, as I mentioned, I just recently started a political show, the Luke Beasley Show for any of your followers, Luke Beasley on YouTube. And I've been
nice. Good luck
a
to
follower
him.
of you for a while. And so, you know, when you say something just so absurd, I had to reach out.
Right. Remind me what it was that I said that's so absurd. Fill me in.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously I get that the tension's running high with the Roe v. Wade news. I'm what the kids call a sock dim, so with you on most issues, but obviously down the road we would maybe disagree. So actually on the policy prescriptions, we would agree on the conversation around abortion, but the way in which you obviously responded to that news was calling Republicans, and then you went on to specify Republican politicians, maybe primarily, were demons in human flesh. And I saw that...
Which is medically true, by the way. Scientific studies have been done.
Right. I brought all the studies to, you know, fight you on that. And I saw that you talked to a conservative, and I saw the title and got nervous that he was going to argue with you about this exact same thing. But then y'all's conversation went more into him saying, it's not that bad, all these different things. That's not where I want to go at all. I agree with you on how bad any of these given issues. I mean, the fact that you would be pro-life, quote unquote, wanting to minimize abortions, but then also want to ban contraception makes no sense. Not saying I defend. Or y'all got into the conversation around the demonization of trans people and all that. None of those things am I going to be like, oh, don't call them evil because it's not that bad. That's not my point at all.
It was definitely a bit tangential. Oh, by the way, there are people in chat asking for your name and pronouns, just to be clear.
Yeah, Luke Beasley, and pronouns are he, him.
There we go. All right. Thank you. But yeah, go on right ahead.
Absolutely. So, I guess...
You can tell Vaush thinks the pronoun thing's a bit cringe. You can tell, listen... You can tell Vaush is a bit like self-conscious about having to ask about the pronouns, but his chat obviously like push for that. You can tell he's a bit like, oh.
I'm not trying to kind of, oh my God, look at all these quotes, but I did write them down just so we could kind of hash them out. And my biggest concern is, what does it do for our movement using that type of rhetoric? Instead of us arguing on if Republicans are evil or not, because that's kind of a pointless conversation in my mind. More so, is it a good strategy to be calling them that for our own movement? So you kind of feel like that's good? Agree to that?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I know this guy's quite new, but the biggest thing is like I think cutting to the chase is good. We're like 3 minutes in. Just cut to the chase. Just say direct. I think just saying directly, he's probably like, I don't know who this guy is, but he sounds a little bit like anxious maybe. But yeah, I like, what was it? I can't even remember. Was it Vaush said Republicans are evil or something? I can't even remember what it was that he said that was so bad, apparently.
I think we're rapidly reaching the point where our ability to achieve our political goals is going to come down to convincing liberals, like yourself, that this is no longer a political conflict which can be won exclusively through, you know, traditional institutionalist political discourse because the Democratic Party isn't.
But yeah, I mean, you know, he's doing the right. He's trying to like butter up Vaush a bit, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean he's trying to come in like a good faith way or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I like directness, but hey, we'll see what happens.
Willing or able to operate as an effective agent of change on our behalf. Instead, that we need to be preparing for more dire civil conflict, and in so doing, we need the stakes to be understood fully. Which, you know, obviously I want to impress upon my audience, and I do fully believe that.
Yeah. So one of the things that bothers me whenever I hear people talking about we can't keep going with what we're doing, and the lack of action from our current Democratic Party is proof that anything other than kind of dramatic, maybe revolutionary type actions isn't going to work. And they'll say like, an example of this is that's outside the conversation we're having is people will be saying, oh, they've been saying reform the police for ages and nothing's happened. That's why we have to completely abolish the police or something. And to me, it's like, yeah, but they've been saying that and we've never gotten people in office, or at least enough of them, who are actually going to try to reform the police. So it's the same thing with this, where you're saying we're past the point. We've seen time and time again, this isn't your wording, but the Democratic Party or the left in this country tries a certain strategy while the right goes further and further right, and it just doesn't work. And to me, an actual progressive movement that doesn't go all the way to kind of like violent rhetoric could dramatically change the political landscape and bring over a lot of the quote unquote moderates or center rightish people who don't want to murder people.
Right.
And
so let's hone in on this. You talk about nonviolent rhetoric. Okay. So I'm a big advocate for defensive violence here, you know. I do think we're in the preliminary stages of a genocide against queer people in particular, but probably adjacent groups as well. And
Wait, what? A genocide? Really? Do we really think a genocide's gonna? That seems a bit fucking. I don't know what the right word is. I don't think it's gonna be a genocide. I think that you can point out the issues with American politics and whatever there is without going to, oh, there's going to be a genocide. Like, what evidence is there's going to be a genocide? You know, acceptance for LGBT people is like, you know, compared to what it was 20 or 30 years ago. Like 30 years ago, you could be openly homophobic to someone in the street and literally no one would bat an eye. If you saw two fellas holding hands, you could just berate them and people would probably be like, oh, whatever. But now, like, yes, there's still issues with like homophobia and stuff like that. But I think it's better than it was 30 years ago, say, right? I don't know. I just think this is a bit excessive.
And in such an environment, I think it is politically irresponsible to treat the agents of that genocide with anything other than the greatest possible degree of moral condemnation. See, there are historical examples of your strategy not working. Usually when fascist governments begin to take power, there is a outspoken liberal contingent that mocks, downplays, attempts to civilly reason with, pull people over, and then of course invariably they're silenced or killed. The fascists take power anyway, because people just seem to be more responsive to alarmist rhetoric, you know.
But I'm not talking at all about minimizing or standing by. There's a difference between you could be super alarmist. This is so dangerous without saying this is a class of people that is, and just so you know, I'm not like morally horrified. Oh my God, he called him. I'm literally just thinking from a strategy point of view, without setting a group of people into a non-human category, because I feel like I've heard you talk about this on stream before. Even with people like Nazis, if we say, okay, they're monsters, they're not human, they're something different, then we're not. Yeah, I definitely have heard you talk about this. Then we're not able to.
So, like, you know, I guess that my question would be, what evidence have we got that we're teeing up for a genocide? You know, are there things happening which are like bad and are maybe like a step back on certain rights? Like, you know, sure, you know, I'm sure there's stuff you can point to say, yeah, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, but that's a long way from like there's going to be a genocide. I don't know. I'm very skeptical about this, and there needs to be some pretty bold evidence for me to go, oh yeah, look, there is actually a genocide being queued up.
Okay, how do they get there? How could we take them out of it, or how could we even fight them? Because you don't really know how to conceptualize a fight against an inhuman monster.
I agree with that. from an
Yeah.
analytical perspective, when we're talking about average,
How far do you need to progress in the game? Oh, just to the end of level chapter 1. Literally, chapters goes like chapter 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, etc. There's a few things you got to do, but get to like 1-8, complete that, and that's it.
people, not so much when we're talking about politicians. For instance, there's a difference between some random 16-year-old neo-Nazi and Nick Fuentes, in that Nick Fuentes not only perpetuates the system but actively benefits from his participation in it. Same with the Republican politicians. I think that oftentimes pulling people out of very far-right movements is about helping them understand they've been duped, misled, their life is being harmed. But for these people, their life isn't being harmed. Matt Gaetz's life is not being worsened by being a fascist in power. It's benefited significantly. So at that point, it's no longer a matter of convincing them or moving them away. It's a matter of fomenting a suitable degree of political opposition, which obviously I believe is farther than what you might believe it needs to be.
The crazy thing, though, about this new sect of the Republican Party, this we think of as the more fascistic, far right.
Wait, I've seen Luke Beasley do interviews with Pacman. Oh wait, is he like he's just done his own show, but he's been part of the space for a little while, is he, with Pacman? Is that true? Kind
of category is they are very much, not on some things, they're still very pro-corporate a lot of times, stuff like that, but in the areas that really define them, they're actually representing a lot of their base very well. And so in a democracy, they're just very clearly self-interested politicians who are seeing a increasingly radicalized base that wants to get meat thrown to them all the time, calling for that, and they answer. And so it's not like, to me, someone who's evil, and kind of what you were talking about in your video that I'm responding to, was, listen, we can reason and understand people when they're doing it for their own gain, but we can't understand people when it's literally just to make somebody suffer. And in the case of the politicians like Matt Gaetz that you're talking about, it's not just to make people suffer. It is making people suffer, and it's horrible, but it's out of complete self-interest. As you just said, he's benefiting from his base loving him because he's doing all these radical actions. And I think if you're willing to accept that the voters aren't just demons in human flesh, well, then the politicians aren't really either, just really self-interested people looking to stay in office.
In terms of their moral, how I would judge them morally, I can't say there would be that much of a difference. The only difference is how you can treat them in terms of what approaches are politically efficacious. And I always think that it's more acceptable to take hardline stances against people in power than just random citizens, even if they have the same political positions. Also, of course, even the farthest right, random Republican dipshits can potentially be convinced out of their positions. You can't convince a politician out of their positions.
Right,
their whole job is to do the things that they say they're going to do. You can't debate them out of that.
Right, but if someone's listening to you walk them through, okay, these people, picture them, are demons in human flesh, then it stops there. Like if I'm running down that logic train and I'm thinking, okay, this is the person that I fully trust, I would stop the analysis there, because if someone is truly purely evil, they're just Satan, then they're just trying to harm people, and I can't really understand how do we combat them, because they're just going. But if you understand that they're just trying to represent a radical base, and then you also understand that the best thing you can do to change the radical base's mind is not address them in such a way, then the goal, now you have an actual
I think you're conflating a few things. There's nothing mutually exclusive there. You can say a person is evil while also recognizing there are socioeconomic justifications for their behavior. Evil isn't really
not the analysis that you had. It was just like, that's it.
At no
over.
point,
we can't pull them out of it, but we totally can pull voters out of it.
I've never made this an intrinsic thing. This isn't like people being born evil.
Well, yeah,
maybe you could say it's their job to be evil, but even evil isn't like a real moral category. The closest thing that I could really come up to it, outside of rhetorical shorthand, is the axioms that they're attempting to maximize with their behavior are in stark contradiction to the outcomes of the axioms that I would like to put about. So, for example, if they're
You have to say everything like that. Why can't he just talk normal? Why can't he just say they've got different fundamental political goals to me? Like, what does that have to... Oh,
fascists, and they believe in a fundamental sense, in rigid hierarchy and the promotion of like an anti-degenerate social order, that would starkly contradict with any invocation of my axioms, because it would entail genocide against queer people. So in that sense, you might say, well, evil is a shorthand. The long form would be that their axiomatic outcomes are mutually exclusive to mine. They contradict.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, but it all is a rhetoric game. And if you take someone who's, I have a few friends who I would say are from center left, center, and center right, kind of all around that little spectrum. And watching their engagement with politics is super interesting, because I got in a conversation about abortion with a family member, and afterwards she was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I still feel like I'm pro-life. I don't know if I agree with you, but that actually makes a lot of sense. Like it's about all the reasons we say about autonomy, the baby or to be baby, the fetus being biologically dependent on the mother, so then she has the right over it.
I'm curious if a red state outright banned all trans healthcare, regardless of age. Would you call that a genocide? I mean, possibly, yeah. I mean, it depends, like, what we're talking about. Like, what would they be banning? What definition of genocide are we using as well? I mean, obviously, it'd be bad. I worry that we just use genocide to describe anything that's bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, there could be, like, a really bad thing that happens, but I don't know if it's, like, a genocide, right?
And she had not even heard that explanation laid out for her anywhere. And so I'm picturing her being like, gosh, the right wing's pretty crazy. And she flips over, okay, maybe not this person, but someone who's younger flips over to your channel. And your response to the news is not, oh, we really got to deprogram people, but the leaders of this movement are just fundamental, or I don't know how exactly. No, yeah, let's see. They're just evil, fundamentally evil, not human beings.
I feel like
say all access to gender affirming care. I just don't know what definition of genocide I'd be using. Like maybe under some sort of, broad definition. But like, if you're calling that a genocide, it just seems like, well, what's the point of having a term genocide then? I don't know. It seems a bit excessive to call that a genocide. Like, I feel like maybe it's just because people don't feel they have the language to describe how bad something like that would be, so they revert to genocide. But yeah. Hey, Dr. Butler. Thanks for the sub. But yeah, I don't. Oh wow, 2 years. That's crazy. Hope you're doing well, Dr. Butler. But yeah, I think that for me, yeah, it would be like some sort of state oppression, right? It would be like some sort of state oppression that you could argue, not that it's genocide. But that's what I personally would say. But yeah, I don't know.
She's gonna go like, wow, okay, that's definitely radical too. And then we have a bunch of people who are just status quo, all super excited about the status quo.
I feel like the
because everything else is radical.
What you're talking about right now is kind of like the liberal myth, like the starry-eyed dream. If this was the case, why has none of the moderate or like center-leaning or bipartisan messaging of the Democratic Party brought over anyone? Republicans were as galvanized
because they co-opted that language. You understand it as much as I do. The quote unquote moderate.
My understanding is like, aren't there some Republicans that are like, there was that one Republican guy I think that put a stop to some like anti-trans legislation that was going through. And aren't there some more moderate Republicans that are kind of stepping back from the Trumpism of the party? I mean, I don't follow American politics closely enough to say. I know there's some nut jobs in the Republican Party, but I do think there's some middle ground as well, right? It's not all just complete fucking insane rightoids, no? Hey, OG Drizzle, thank you so much for that. It should pop up in a sec. But thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
It's in Congress / the Senate, the House and Senate, or even Biden, are not actually moderate in the country. They're just more friendly to business interests, more friendly to the status quo, stuff like that. They're not at the center of the country.
That brings them closer to the middle.
Yeah, sorry, go for it.
Well, that brings them closer to the middle. It's not like Republicans aren't pro-business and pro-economic elite. They're more so.
No, but you see it in situations like.
I guess that like, especially after Trump, because they saw obviously a win with Trump, and now Trump's gone, and they have to simultaneously, distance themselves from Trump, but then where do they go from there? And I guess the concern is like, well, what do we do? Because Trump, is bad optics, especially with the January 6th stuff. But now, what? Yeah, I can imagine maybe there is some sort of identity crisis. Like, what do they do? Because if they moderate, are they getting too close to like the Dems? And they still got to retain their strong like small government perspectives as well, presumably. I don't fucking know, but yeah. Hey, a new player joined the game. Thank you very much. 110. Excellent stuff. Let's keep it going.
West Virginia. We talked about like this a lot with Joe Manchin because people will say, he just has to be conservative because West Virginia is conservative. But then you look at polling, you're like, yeah, they're conservative on a lot of issues, namely social issues, but a lot of economic issues are actually super progressive. So they call themselves.
Let's try to have a debate about UK politics. I actually did a panel yesterday about Ireland, about the Northern Irish election results. Sometimes, if there's something worth talking about, but not as often as other stuff.
Themselves moderate to get away with keeping the status quo, but I think the center of the country is very willing to
Look,
do some change.
I'll
That's
just
pretty
be
progressive.
a bit more direct here.
Go for it.
I think that for interpersonal conversations, it's very important to adopt certain rhetorical approaches to make people feel like they're understood and to address their concerns. I also feel like we're on the precipice of a genocide. And I know, looking at history, that your approach has been ineffective, to say the least. Would you have told the Jews back in 32 in Germany that they shouldn't be calling Hitler evil because they may yet convince some moderate-leaning Germans? Of course not. You would understand that past the point, you just need to foment as much radical opposition as possible. What we're living through right now is an era of unprecedented partisanship, and there just isn't that much evidence to indicate that on a broad scale, we're going to pull the Republican Party.
Why does it always go back to fucking Hitler? Like, come on. I don't know. I just look. I'm gonna be eating my hat if they, set up the Detroit death camps or whatever. But I'm just skeptical of this kind of comparison. I just don't think this is apt. I think that it's too. Yeah, it's just too extreme. Again, I think you can make a point about how bad things are without going straight to fucking Adolf Hitler himself.
Party apart. The QAnon believing, January 6th defending, Trump really won the election believing Republican Party apart. What we can do is socially stigmatize them, and that is an effective form of rhetoric. After the Civil Rights Act was passed and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, most Americans didn't like the man, thought he was too radical. We didn't make people and make social life less racist by calmly debating the issue or reaching out or being bipartisan. We did it by shaming. I think it's high time that the perpetrators of a potential genocide be referred to as what they actually are. This liberal hand-wringing has not brought Republicans over to us.
Okay, yeah,
they are
I'm also
evil.
not your,
They're murderers, and I think
typical-
it's okay to tell people that. If that makes them go out and buy
What?
guns and ammo and prepare for a day where they try to enact that genocide, then all better for it. Guns are our
What? What the fuck is going on? Okay, can I just get a bit of a check here from the Yankoid? Is this like, are there any queer Yankoids here? Like, are you like thinking about buying a gun to protect yourself from this genocide? Like, I mean, I admit I'm in England, and we got some issues, but like, yeah, hello there. We see you in we see your papers. You're a little bit queer, yeah. You sucked a few dicks in your time, yeah. We're going to take you to the Detroit Re-Education Center. Yeah? You have good time there. I don't know. It's just like, what the fuck is going on? American brain rot problems. Buy as much guns as possible. Oh, God. Listen, I might be going to New York. Did I say already? Did I tell you? I don't know when exactly. But at some point, basically, I've got this thing where I've got some points and I can get a flight. So I might be going to New York in the near future. I'll check it out then. Okay, I'll check out other genocides coming along then, all right?
already in this country. I would rather them be in the hands of
hold
victims
up,
than
give me-
victors.
yeah, lots of stuff to respond. First of all, I know in comparison to your language, I'm gonna come off naturally, which I hate.
New York
as
City,
the
yeah.
Pro, like bipartisan, boring liberal. That's definitely not actually my positions. I am sickened every time I have to hear a person in power like get super turned on by the idea of pointless bipartisanship and all that type of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a big difference between heavy shame and trying to socially stigmatize certain ideologies and understanding, as of now, the block of people who truly believe those things, like we're talking about right now because of the mass shooting, the Great Replacement Theory, how Tucker Carlson's talked about that, and lo and behold, in this guy's manifesto, he's talking about it, and a lot of people believe that. But I think
Keep in mind, Logic, 4 years of Trump ended with immigrants at the southern border in concentration camps and being forced sterilized. What was the sterilization thing? I remember reading about that and it sounded bad. But I don't know. Is it bad that when I hear it, I'm a bit skeptical and I'm like, did that happen? But yeah. Well, send me links and I'll have a look. But it seems crazy to me, the idea that like in America you're gonna see a genocide of LGBT people. It just seems so excessive. But maybe I'm not maybe I'm too optimistic. I don't know, but it just sounds fucking crazy to me.
Place voters, and if there's a block of not even just liberals, don't you agree that liberals are a part of our movement? Because otherwise, the people you classify as actually a part of the movement that you're a part of is so tiny.
Well, they're not part of my socialist movement, and they can't really be part of an anti-fascist movement either, unless they're actually willing to act on it. But they're not able to act on it.
Liberals are the easiest people to bring in. Well, it's not easy, but
that's what I'm trying to do.
Are going to be the easiest people to bring over into anti-fascism.
I agree. Liberals need to be dissuaded of their weird ahistorical paternalistic delusion that fascism is something that civility will work us out of. They need to be buying guns and operating militantly. That's what I look to do, by the way. Liberals need to be afraid. They should be afraid. We're at the precipice of a very difficult social situation. Their
Don't
fear
you think that
needs to be politically
incredibly
effective.
exaggerated?
Wait, what is?
Yeah, a genocide's about to happen, and we need to all go get guns and
that right there is
slaughter.
Why we're not a part of the same group. No, we're literally, like, if you look at any like lead up to a genocide like charts, like where are you? Here, here, here. Like, it's not ambiguous. Those charts weren't written by leftists. I mean, we're at the point right now where right-wing media is coordinating to condition their audience to think of all queer people, or even people with colored hair, Jesus, as groomers and pedophiles, which is a clear element of dehumanization, which leads up to legal oppression, which we're getting through currently, right now, unstopping, and following that,
So here's the big difference, though.
Okay, so I know that there's been some like pretty shitty bills going through potentially of some issues, but is there any bill that is like, going against the gays? I know that like some of those bills about the school stuff is contentious and whatever, but like, is there like legislation that's like you can't suck another fella's dick or something? I don't know. I don't know. It's just a bit like, is that something I've missed? Right now, the Secretary of Transportation is Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, but do not forget. But wait. But do not forget. Right, there was that gay Nazoid. What was his name? What was the name of that gay Nazoid? Wasn't he in Africa or something? And then in the Night of the Broken Glass, he got wait, no, not Night of the Broken Glass, the other night they did, where the German army got like wrecked. Yeah, there was a gay Nazoid. You know the one I mean. No, actual Nazoid.
That is not something that even a large portion of everyone who's to the right of me believes in fully.
Rommel, that's
almost every single person I talk to, and if you look at polling, but you should care, because for a genocide
they don't have to believe it
on the horizon, there has to be a significant portion of the country that has enough people in power that could make that happen.
Wait, they do.
Whereas right now, the vast look at any polling on any LGBTQ issue, vast majority of America is very not on board with
the Weimar Republic was the most progressive place in Europe before the Nazis took over. Republicans in 2024 are probably going to have all four branches, well, three branches, 4 seconds, the presidency, the Senate, Congress, and certainly the courts. If you don't think they'd be willing to just start, engaging in full stop legal oppression, like their messaging for decades, they've been signaling this. What do you think the lead up is? Huh?
I agree. You look at, I'm in Texas, and the law that.
Yeah, I like. All I can think here is like, this just seems like fear mongering. I don't really know if there's like sufficient evidence to point to this idea that there's some sort of, genocide on our doorstep, on Americans' doorsteps. And I think that this fella's right. I think that America generally is quite progressive, especially in like, the cities and whatnot. I think that there's probably some parts of America where if you're queer, you're probably going to have a tougher time because maybe people around you aren't as supportive or whatever. So yeah, I don't deny that but that's the same, over here too. Like there's definitely parts of the UK where if you're gay, you'll probably get some shit, which is bad. But I don't know if, it's like a genocide level thing, but yeah.
Or that Greg Abbott tried to do of classifying gender affirming care for children as child abuse. That's legal oppression 100%. Is that what you're talking about?
The legal
you
oppression
think
precedes
Magna?
other behavior.
Okay. And
Do you
then-
sincerely not believe, like, do you think the obsession with degeneracy in America, the belief that there's an effete elite group of liberal or leftist academics that are controlling our children, and the belief
But is this like, there's some people that definitely say this kind of rhetoric, right? But I don't know if it's like the lifeblood of America. I think the lifeblood of America, like, my perception would be that, you know, if you were to speak to just like a regular Joe American kind of person, they'd probably just be like, live and let live. They might be a little bit, you know, like slightly homophobic, a tiny bit, you know, like in a non-offensive way. But like, it would more so be, well, if you want to suck a dick, suck a dick. Well, boy, howdy. If you want to suck a dick, you go ahead and suck a dick. Boy, howdy. Help me God. Or something like that. That was my American accent. That was my American pro-gay accent, okay? My more the live and let live accent.
popular belief that non-whites are being brought into the country in order to replace the white population, in tandem with the Republican Party signaling that they're going to attempt another coup if they don't win. But
the people in chat that are saying it's bad, right? Do you not worry that you're taking this hardline approach that it's like a genocide and, you know, it's really bad because people like Vaush are saying so? Like, I don't know. Who are you, like, what media consumption are you engaging in? Because if all the people you're watching are telling you it's really bad, there's a genocide and we're all going to die, like, I wouldn't blame you for coming to that conclusion.
Welcome to Chud Nation. That's 10 Mum.
Hey, thanks for the 10 months. Appreciate it.
probably going to win and hold all houses. This isn't something which you think merits a sufficient degree of alarm on your part?
Oh, 100%. I'm 100. I mean, look at my own content. There's tons of things to be alarmed about, and it's exactly what you're.
But this is, I feel like what Vaush is doing is he's doing this. He's going, oh my God, guys, there's a genocide. Oh my God, they're fucking evil. They want to slaughter us by the dozen. Arm yourselves and protect yourselves, right? And then when he's challenged on it, he's like, in this conversation, he's going, do you not think there's some cause for alarm here? And it's like, yeah, bro, you can be alarmed about something without calling for people to go and fucking arm themselves and call it a genocide, right? Like, you know, things can be bad without us going to the extremity of like, oh, there's a genocide being teed up.
You're talking about. But one of the things that I think you did do a very poor job of conveying, and okay, let me finish what I'm saying, but then I have a question as well, was you didn't at all divide until maybe the very end of your video between politicians and voters, and then went on to talk about political violence, build our democracy, kill them, and then he paused for a long time, was like, socially, you know, politically. And they wants to, the Republican Party, the modern Republican Party wants to personally murder every minority that lives within the border of the country and then tell people to get guns. To me, that's expediting some sort of huge violent clash between two groups in the country, but not at all moving us faster towards squashing the fascistic element of the movement.
You squash fascistic movements by winning the violent clashes.
So your political plan is to prepare for a civil war and then fight it.
I don't know if a civil war is the right word. There's certainly going to be violence in this country during my lifetime, and if there is going to be violence, then I would prefer the people with the better morals to be the ones who are appropriately armed and prepared.
But
My
right
actual
now,
guess is that there's
each
going to
one
be
of-
an increasing divide between red and blue states, and that...
Listen, if you look, listen, those. Oh God, I nearly said something that was really spicy. Then I better not. I've got to be careful. I'm on Twitch. I nearly said something that was real fucking spicy there. Okay, but look, all I'm going to say is this: I don't think you should rely on like the terminally online leftoids to fight. Okay, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, come on now, let's be real. I don't think the terminal online leftoids that watch this shit are going to be best placed to do this. The Reddit death squads. Oh God. You probably thought the same way about Vito's trying to overthrow the US government until January 6th. Yeah, remind me. Hey, thanks so much for the bits. Remind me, how did they get on January 6th? Can you just give me a little... Because as far as I can remember, I think one of them got slotted by a copper, right? And then the rest of them got fucking arrested en masse. And a couple of coppers died after the fact. But I don't think that it was some great success for the right, was it? I don't know. Listen, I'm just a Brit Bonger giving my takes, but this seems extremely hyperbolic to me.
With control of the federal government, Republicans are going to attempt to impose federal law to control the blue states, because they can't control it with state law. Blue states, some of them will refuse, and then there might be clashes between state guard or police. Some police might try to enforce it, but like others will say like, no, don't do that. There might be attempts at ousting. Remember during the Black Lives Matter rallies?
Yeah. Right. Leftoid Battalion. Send the Twitter autists. Go, go, go. The Twitter autists, go. Put them behind the Bedblob division. The Bedblob division are gonna soak up the bullets. The autist division are gonna have the better aim because of their hyper focus. Send them in after the Bedblobs, okay? Get them in after the Bedblobs. And then we've got a bunch of fatties over here in the mobility scooters, okay? With swords. That's all we could get for them. Like, we couldn't get a license for them to get a weapon, but we got them a sword. Get them in. Get the fucking mobility fatties in. Go. Woo! In they go. Oh shit, they're getting wiped out. Fuck. Send in the Redditors. Send in Redditor division now. Quickly, they need reinforcements.
There were like those Patriot Prayer dumb fucks rolling their $60,000 trucks through like urban neighborhoods with a bunch of guys with guns in the pickup trucks. When that happens, I want people to be able to take shots at them from apartment windows. I don't want them to just be victims here. We have to be ready. What state do you live in? You live in the States, right?
Texas, yeah.
And
Austin,
you better be buying guns.
I'm not.
What did he just say?
But like others will say like, no, don't do that. There might be attempts at ousting. Remember during the Black Lives Matter rallies, there were like those Patriot Prayer dumb fucks rolling their $60,000 trucks through like urban neighborhoods with a bunch of guys with guns in the pickup trucks. When that happens, I want people to be able to take shots at them from apartment windows. I don't want them to just be victims here. We have to be ready.
What's going on with Vaush? What the fuck? I was on in a panel with this guy the other day and I had a good time. Now he's advocating for people to shoot at people in pickup trucks. What the fuck? Jesus. This is insane. What is going on?
What state do you live in? You live in the States, right?
Texas, yeah.
And
Austin,
you better be buying guns.
I'm not.
It's easy there, ain't it?
The biggest thing I can advocate for, okay, regardless of where you are, right? If you can get outside, I know there's some bedblobs out there, okay? But if you can get outside, it's like, go down to your local store, right? Buy a couple of things and have a chat with the cashier, right? That's a good little sense check for you, I think. Just go and have a chat with the cashier and, just ask them how the day is. Ask them what they're up to. Any plans later? Just be friendly. Do you know what I mean? Just have that human interaction, because I think that when you do that, you kind of have a moment of like, okay, maybe things aren't quite as bad as I thought they were. Because most people are going to be pretty fucking chill. They're not going to be like, you know what I mean? Yeah, talk about the weather. I don't know, I live, okay, so listen, I know I'm a cishet white dude or whatever, right? I know that you're going to get that sort of thing. But I live in a very conservative area, okay? The likelihood is, if I speak to someone, they're probably going to vote conservative, right? And although I would admit there's more political division in America than there is over here, I think that, remembering that despite your political disagreements, a lot of people are good people. They've just got different political views, right? And no, I'm not talking about the people that want to fucking kill you or some stupid shit like that. What I'm saying is, right, if you speak to people and just have that engagement, you'll kind of be like, okay, maybe it's not quite as bad as I thought it was. I just look, my thing is engage and speak to people where possible. I just hate it when it's like people are like, you've got to fear for your life, go and get a gun. I just think that's crazy. The UK and America are completely different. Telling a POC to just talk to strangers in red states is a risk. Are you telling me that if a black person went up to a random person in a red state and just said, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" they'd be putting their life at risk? What are you talking about? You're like it's the 1800s and black people are getting fucking strung up left, right, and centre. I'm fairly certain that even if the other person is a bit racist, that they're not going to fucking like kill them. I don't think it's going to be a risk. You know, the worst they might have, like, I don't know, a shitty conversation, but on the whole, they'll probably have a good interaction, right? I'd like, look, I don't want to doubt your lived experience or whatever, but I'm a bit skeptical about the idea that like it's that bad.
To me, there's a huge difference. What did you say? It's easy there. Oh, to get a gun, yeah, 100%. The amount of people who are willing to conduct any sort of violence right now, as opposed to people who sort of like a person who watched Tucker Carlson.
That's your white privilege talking. I mean, if you want to, you know, soy out about that kind of shit, maybe, but I don't know. I don't know if it's like white privilege to go, hey, the likelihood is if you're a person of color, you can probably have a friendly interaction with a stranger. Is that white privilege talking? I don't know. Oh, you were memeing. Okay, fair enough. Some people would say that though, probably, but thank you for letting me know. I don't know. I just think that that's like fear mongering. I personally think you're better off just having a more, you know, sense. Keep yourself safe, obviously. Like people are saying there's some dangerous parts. Sure, I'm sure there is. There's probably parts of the country that I, you know, might have trouble in if I go there late at night. You know, I mean, well, there was just some stabbings recently in London. 2 people were killed in some stabbing spree. But yeah, what did you say, Dario? Read your previous message. Chud Logic, how you doing? What's your plans later? Cashier, well, my favourite streamer told me Civil War is coming, so I'm about to buy a gun and go to the firing range to practice. Chud, oh, are you also a Vaush fan? Cashier, no, I watched Tim Pool. Oh my god, that is a banger. Jesus.
It's like, oh, I kind of like this stuff. The great placement theory, yeah. But we're not seeing this mass movement of people. It's still very fringe to me. Of people who are like, I want to conduct violence. And
Doesn't
so then
matter
for
if they
us on
want
our
to.
side to be like, okay, it's time for us to be getting guns and preparing to shoot each other down in the streets.
Well, first of all, the right's been doing that for decades. This whole feds are gonna take my guns, we better arm up. They've been getting ready for decades, so we got to catch up. Second of all, it doesn't matter if they want to go doing any shooting. You know what's actually going to happen? Police are going to try to do it first, and then they are going to support the police. You know, go look at any genocide in recent history, past century. The way you think it plays out ain't how it plays out, you know? It's not like a bunch of people vote or like there's a poll, how many of you want to kill the minorities? And like 50% say yes, and then they go start doing it, you know? There's a creeping assimilation of political power as the right ramps up genocidal messaging against minority groups, accusing them of being the weakness within the country that's tearing them and civilization apart. Then you see like right-wing militias acting alongside like police units to enforce unofficial or official legal restrictions against certain minority groups or left-leaning areas. This has happened before. And by the way, that militia group shit's already happened, ain't it? DeSantis recently, didn't he try to form like some Florida
Zone state guard, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what he wanted that
extra.
for. Yeah, one makes you wonder, right after an attempted political coup, why would one of the most right-wing governors in the country, maybe the most, who's gunning for president in 24, want essentially a private army? Obviously, it doesn't operate exactly as a private army, but, you know, he's played it fast and loose with the rules before. Man, we need guns. And it's defensive, too. I'm not talking about initiating violence. I'm only talking about making sure innocent folks can defend themselves.
He was talking about taking pot shots at some fellas driving down the road in a pickup truck earlier. Because they're part of, what, Patriot Prayer? He was talking about popping off shots at people just driving along. What's he on about? Come on, Vaush. Jesus Christ. This to me is just like mind-blowing.
They come for them.
Yeah. I don't know. I think right now public opinion is in a place that the way we can defend ourselves from all of that is by grabbing power and being like a fun little movement.
Oh yeah, listen, if your message is like, look, you know, the right to own a firearm is codified in our constitution, I personally would recommend just ensuring that you've got a gun and you're trained in it and you've got the training, But this kind of like, they're going to genocide us, go and buy a gun, just seems like fear-mongering. And I just, you know, do you really want a bunch of Twitter leftoids going and buying a gun? Jesus, could you imagine?
of online people who scream about well, no, that's not how I would want to say that. Who's just screaming about preparing for a huge violent clash does not have broad appeal, and we need broad appeal in our movement to have any chance of getting power. One of the people I think about a lot is Bernie Sanders. Obviously, he sort of came out of nowhere in that first run and did pretty well. Didn't win, obviously. But one of the things that was super notable about him, he definitely conveyed his views. He's definitely very, raises alarm about the anti-democratic stuff with the Republican Party, all of that. But comes off and in his rhetoric he could be a moderate dude. Now, of course, the media pretends that he's super radical all the time, but there was a lot of people that I knew who generally were usually saw themselves in the center and they're like, oh, Bernie's kind of cool.
But honestly, the problem as well with my takes is like, you'll give a take like mine. So I'll give a take, which is like, hey, things aren't so bad. Go and talk to your neighbor. Go and talk to a cashier and see what's up. You'll probably find it's not so bad. And then people will be like, Chud Logic thinks you should be friends with someone that wants to genocide you. Chud Logic thinks you can just, what about if you're a black trans disabled woman? You think you should do that then? And it's like, well, yeah. Will you get more shitty, interactions? Possibly. But that doesn't mean that, you're going to get fucking shot between the eyes. I don't know. Just to me, I just think this is just way too far. And you could moderate this and it would be a perfectly fine message. Listen, Daniela, I know you're a troll, so this is the last time I respond to you. Your cashiers don't have guns to their side, ready to pop someone's head off for being different. Is that common, is it? Cashiers having a gun, and then if a black person walks in, they just fucking yeet them immediately.
Even though he was the most left candidate. And I think if generally as the left, we and online progressives, we adopt messaging that has broad appeal, we could very, very easily get in power and do the actual foundational things that will prevent them from being able to enact any of this type of stuff. Because that's what we need. I'm telling you, a bunch of Vaushites fighting against a bunch of Proud Boys, it could definitely happen in the increasing rhetoric on either side currently, but that's not going to save us from a fascistic takeover. We definitely have to get enough actual political power, and the only way you do that is to have broad appeal in your movement and not just sound like, oh, see, there's radicals on the left and radicals on the left.
I don't think,
because our policy prescriptions aren't even radical. Maybe farther down.
So they call us radical either way. They call Biden
people
radical.
Understand the difference. People call Bernie radical. Exactly, and it didn't work with Biden. They'll call you that, but if it lands on people, it's a different thing.
Republicans have called Biden a communist. I don't think my rhetoric, this is where, with respect, I think this is liberal brain rot. I don't think acknowledging that you should arm yourself in preparation for a genocide and that the people who want to kill minorities are evil is an optical harm. I think you're falling for civility politics.
But I'm saying that I'm not, okay.
Wait, I don't think it's about civility politics.
To Chud Nation.
Hey, Devin, how's it going?
Versus Proud Boys. They just make out.
I don't think being against, hey, there's a genocide, arm yourselves and shoot a fucking Patriot Prayer people in a fucking pickup truck. I don't think saying that's kind of a bit crazy, dude. I don't think that's civility politics, is it? What the fuck is going on, Vaush? God, I was running a panel with this guy the other day. I feel like this is Vaush's biggest issue, is he just, he gets super unhinged when he talks about rightoids. I do, just to be clear as well, I do think there's some fucking whack jobs in the Republican, politician side of things. There's people that are QAnon adjacent, and maybe even some QAnon candidates themselves are running. I don't know the full details. But there are some fucking whack jobs. There's no doubt about that. And it's okay to call them out and criticize them or whatever. But this, to me, just seems like an excessive overstep in response to whatever whack jobs exist, Did you miss the Buffalo shooter? No. I mean, it was pretty hard to miss. It was covered in the news quite a lot. But I don't think you can point to an outlier like the Buffalo shooter and use it broadly to paint a same brush or act like you need to go and fucking arm yourself. When you say things like that, did you miss the Buffalo shooter? You're doing what the right-wingers did with Islamist terrorism. They did exactly the same thing. There'd be an Islamist terror attack, and they go, oh, look, it's the Muslims. You need to fucking protect yourself against the Muslims. It's the same shit with a different ideology, okay? It's the same fucking shit. So don't fucking fall into that trap.
You have to understand that a lot of people who aren't, I don't like using this because I know Destiny has a thing against online lefties, and it sounds like you have a obsession with it. And I'm not super obsessed.
Do you think it's a crazy online lefty thing to arm yourself in preparation?
Hold up. Just let me finish the thought.
Okay.
My point is, most people, even who consider themselves liberal, who are a part of our broader movement, definitely don't think.
Wait, where for you is a reasonable limit for anti-militancy? I mean, look, America, you have a right, you have a God-given right, God damn it, to possess a firearm. So take advantage of your constitutional right to possess a firearm. Like, go for it. Why not? Train with it, be safe with it, do all the fucking the 4 rules or whatever it is. Like, that's fine. Join a group of people, do some sort of like political outside work, whatever that may be. Like, all of this is fine. But I think you can do everything you need to do to protect yourself and also to like engage in politics without leaning into this fucking unhinged, there's a genocide, let's take some pot shots at some random dudes in a pickup truck situation because they happen to be part of Patriot Prayer. Like, I think that we can get there without this rhetoric personally, but I don't know, who knows? Maybe I'm not being maybe I'm too optimistic.
Think of the Republican Party currently as being preparing to slaughter minorities in
That's
the
what I
streets.
want to
And so
fix.
when you say that, people go, well, then you have to explain it in a way that comes off as sort of logical. The way that you explain it is as if you're just as, even though because I've watched you, I know you're not, so I take it more seriously. But for someone else who hasn't, doesn't have that underlying understanding of kind of your thought process, then it definitely comes off as just as kind of detached.
I talk to
some
my
of the stuff
audience,
that Wright
but
talks
I've
about.
explained my rationale dozens and dozens of times about the necessity of forming strong neighborhood-based political blocks, whether you're leftist or liberal. This isn't about socialism here. This isn't just about building communities that aren't going to roll over when authoritarians try to tear apart our democracy. I don't like. The thing is, to me, like, you are the one more out of touch with America than I am here because you're the one who flinched when I said you should buy a gun. I'm in touch with Americana here. Now, I'm in
Guns
touch
are
with Americana
everywhere.
here. Guns are. Why shouldn't
don't-
we own them? Dozens of them.
I
Thousands
said
of
that
rounds
I
of
don't need a
ammunition.
gun.
Armored.
I didn't punch.
Armored
I'm
vests.
very shocked by what you're saying. So don't worry.
I
My
think
feelings aren't hurt.
I explained my rationale well enough. The precursors to genocide, what leads to it, that's a broadly recognized thing, not just some crazy lefty theory-based thing. The issue with liberals right now is they don't understand the stakes, Liberals should be treating Republicans as what they actually are, evil and immediately threatening. Now,
Everyone in chat is denial because they don't want to think fascism can happen here, but they dismiss the painful truth and ostensibly facilitate authoritarians' rise by means of inaction. Well, what action should you be taking then? You think going and buying a gun and sitting in your house, worried about a genocide is like going to stop this authoritarian rise? Like, I think that political organizing is probably the most effective way to, whatever that may look like for you. It could be community-based, it could be electoral-based, it could be anything. But that's just kind of shit you need to do, not just go and buy a gun and prepare for the incoming civil war. It's like the Turner Diaries, but for queer people. Hey, thanks for joining the game. Appreciate it.
you can talk with them all you want. I love talking to folks. You saw that convo I had with the LDS person last night. Friendly convo. I don't want to, it's not an intrinsic thing. Bring Republicans over, save them from themselves. But the threat right here, it's what we faced in Germany. By we, of course, I mean the progressive left and everyone else, by the way.
Hey,
it's that the belief that this type of political movement can be squashed by anything other than militant, aggressive political action has failed in the past. So that's what we need to do. We got to bring liberals on board. They got to own the guns. They have to be practicing at the ranges. They have to be treating...
How are they coming through so thick and fast? That's crazy.
Political organizing with the same sense of fatalistic engagement that Republicans do. We need people out there as crazy as the Republicans in those school board meetings. We need them showing up to all those local town hall groups. We need them to be psychotic. Break the law. I don't give a shit. Don't hurt any innocent people, of course, but be wacky. Throw some bricks. Don't care. They need to put the fear of God in Republicans. No, we're talking about the greatest country on earth, the God-given U.S. of A., and preventing the takeover of fascism. This is the line.
And we have, what do you mean?
The union organizers in the turn of the 20th century were out there like warring with the police and getting neighborhoods bombed. But that right there, like precursor to genocide, throw a brick, that you flinch at, like this is the issue here. I'm not saying I'm going out there and, doing somersaults on cop cars myself, obviously.
Yeah, but that was the reason, like if you've got a specific goal, that's fine to cause a ruckus. I don't have a problem with that. Like, if you want to fight for labor rights and people aren't listening and you need to fucking stand up and do some crazy shit, then do that. But there's a difference between organizing for labor rights and fucking buying a gun and taking pot shot. Like, I don't know, like this kind of like the fact that he's going on about taking pot shots at these patriot pair people in pickup trucks to me is like, to me indicates, I think what he's getting at, what he really thinks, which is like, not just go and cause a ruckus to get rights that you want. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Oh God.
No, I'm an indoors boy, but we just need that level of energy because there are liberals.
But exactly, you just
Get out
said it
there.
right there. Everyone is indoor people. There is no one except for
Republicans
like,
aren't.
very, very. As far as people who are willing to go out and enact violence, this is not a mass movement whatsoever. A bunch of people want to sit and scream about the damn degenerates in elementary schools, and a bunch of
then the
people on the
people
left want to scream about how fascistic the Republican Party is.
And the
without
people
doing
in
anything.
power will do
I
it.
think if you spend all of the energy that you want your audience to spend getting trained at the gun range and going to self-defense classes and everything, actually organizing, which obviously even in the title, the stream you're helping to do with canvassing and all that. But if that was the focus, we have public opinion on our side. We
But I
could
do both.
squash this movement.
But the thing is, no, wait. Listen, sorry, Neptune's folly. I feel you're being a bit like dishonest here because do you think I have a problem with the idea? I mean, I'm not a massive gun person, but like in America, it's constitutionally like fine, right? If someone said, do you think if someone said, oh, hey, you should buy a gun to protect yourself just in case bad things happen? Like, that's a pretty unobjectionable statement that I think most people would agree with, alongside a message of safety or something like that is fine. But when it's not that, and when you're saying you need to arm yourself because they want to genocide you, which, let's be honest, is essentially what Vaush is saying, like, do you not think that maybe sets people up a little bit to like have a bad perception about like what's going on in America at the moment? I don't know. I just think this is too extreme. Anyway, thank you. Listen, let's keep the downloads coming. We're ticking along nicely today, which I appreciate.
But no, you can't do both. There's
can.
no broad appeal to a block of the left
They do
running
both.
around saying, hey, you know how you're really scared of the right because they seem to be a little bit into violence and have a bunch of guns and everything? We're going to do the same thing.
Good. Get them on
Hooray.
board with it. Like the way moderate
they won't get on
Republicans
board
are with
with
Like, I'm kind of keeping an eye on this chat. Someone was like saying Republicans go to like shooting ranges and prepare for this. They want a civil war really badly. Like, most Republicans do not fucking want a civil war. That is insane shit, okay? Are there like armed militias and stuff? Are there like unhinged far-right militias or whatever that maybe... yeah, absolutely, of course there is. But to say Republicans want that is insane. Hey, they're flying through thick and fast. Someone in Vaush's chat said it. Damn, we're really getting the downloads going. I appreciate that. Anyway,
They're
let's
radicals.
continue.
Wait, no, you're telling me it's impossible when Republicans do this. Republican fascists are advocates for violence, and they're incredibly aggressive electorally because they know their leaders will enact it.
Out of everything. That's what it's so upsetting. It's like Tucker Carlson is so obviously saying that white people are being replaced by black and brown people, but then the way that he says it is never in that exact wording because he understands for a broad audience to like it, he has to at least code it a little bit, and then the more radical fringe goes, we know what he's saying.
They don't.
And
code
so.
it. 30% of Republicans believe that violence might be necessary to fix the direction the country is on. I'm sure there are far fewer liberals as a percentage who would believe that. If I am to be one of the left-leaning people who will openly advocate for that, then let me be that person. If the Republicans can survive 30% of their group thinking it might be necessary, I'm sure that the left can survive me believing it might be necessary. I just don't think it's an optical harm, The only people who complain to me about this, by the way, are like hand-wringing liberals for the most part, Or that LDS guy from the other night, he said he didn't like Trump that much. It's usually people doing the... not concern trolling, because that implies you're being disingenuous. You're not. Like concern from the side.
I know what you're saying because I get upset with the same people, and I'm picturing like Nancy Pelosi talking about wanting a strong Republican Party and all that nonsense. I know the person that you're picturing me to be, and
I don't think it's like hand wringing to say, hey, like let's just chill a little bit with like what you're saying, because like if you state an extreme position that you don't think is true, then I think it's okay to say, hey, I think that's wrong, right? Jesus. Like, yeah, I don't have a problem with the get guns. Like, get a gun. Why not? If you're allowed to own one, then own one. I don't see a problem with that. But it's attached to that's the problem, right?
I need you to understand there's something in between. Oh, that's so scary rhetoric, and we need to lock hands with the right. and what you're talking about, which is, all right, it's war, baby, let's go.
You have to defend yourself against violence. Do you think that's do you think like a black
right
guy
now-
from the 1960s would like shirk if I said that? Like, you should own a firearm because there's a decent probability that far right violence will be inflicted against you.
Yes,
Do you think that'd be
great
like an
point.
out of nowhere thing for
But-
them to hear?
That's a beautiful point. What about?
Does he really think that queer people in America today, is the same as someone in the midst of Jim Crow America? Like, that's insane to me. I don't want to speak over people's experiences, but I find that very hard to believe. Not to say that it's perfect. Oh, Zarel, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Should come through shortly. Like, am I like? Is that like, to me that sounds just like an insane position. As hard as it is, I don't think that the plight of a gay person is anywhere close to what a black person was experienced. Like, we're talking literal segregation and like different seats for different colors on the bus and shit like that.
Or by bringing that up, how did we actually win on the civil rights question? And like you said, there's a little bit of walking and chewing gum, but what was successful in pushing for that political change?
If you think I'm against the passage of law to support our case, then I am in support of that. But that was something. First of all, obviously, a lot of outcomes didn't change after that, and there was quite a bit of militant violence at the time. And it's also worth pointing out that one of the only reasons the Civil Rights Act was passed was because there was so much agitation within the country that was exacerbated by people who are very like me. But yeah, I am glad the law was passed, though that was because they were able to pass the law. What can Democrats pass?
And there is, they could pass a lot of stuff if they beat Manchin and Sinema into submission.
Well, they would still need to get rid of the filibuster, which a lot of them seem unwilling to do.
Right.
Which, if they lose...
He's hyperbolic right now, but you're kind of underplaying how unhinged the right is getting in America. And how... Listen, Swift Pigeon, I don't disagree that there's a lot of polarization, okay? And there's some unhinged people, but call me crazy. I don't think the response to a polarized America is to suggest that there's a genocide and get people to get a fucking gun to defend yourself against this so-called genocide that's going to happen. Maybe call me crazy. Maybe that's going to make polarization worse. I don't fucking know. Maybe there's another way to go about it. And I've said that there's crazies on the right. I don't deny that. But I think that your kind of average Republican Joe six-pack kind of guy is going to be nowhere close to the unhinged shit that you see from like the unhinged people. I don't know. Could be wrong, but that's my belief.
On that,
we're about to get to the primaries, which we're probably going to lose, at the very least the Senate tie, possibly the House, and after that the presidency is probably a coin flip.
Because the movements that are, obviously they have their crazy base. Okay, boom, they have them.
What happens when the Reds win?
And they keep them. What was the question?
What happens when the Reds win? When the Republicans win? What do we do then? Tell me you're not going to respect rules of law passed by them if they entail the oppression of minorities. Like, you'd go like, well, they won the election, so they just get to do that.
Of course not. If it was, unconstitutional stuff, which
no.
Talking about definitely would be.
They have the Supreme Court. It's constitutional. What are you going to do?
My point is, okay, yes. If it was a law that I understood as wrong, I would be against it.
Morally wrong, right?
Yeah.
Well, what would you do?
Okay. It depends on the specifics of the situation.
Well, let's say
they pass a very anti-democratic bill like they've been doing in states.
Hmm?
There's not much. I'm not going to go out and start shooting Republican politicians because they did that.
Whoa! I didn't say that. It would be legally unwise for me to say that. Of course, no. I would never advocate people do that. But let's say they, in 2024, have the House, the Senate, the court, and the presidency, okay? And let's say after they have that, they do start federally passing undemocratic laws, which they can do uncontested, and in fact, absolutely will do, okay? And you see law by law, democracy being eroded. So, what do you do? Now, I'm not, it's a little rhetorical.
We have, well, I'll answer it.
I mean, this is Pepe posting, right? Like, I don't know. That's what it feels like. It feels like the only thing that's holding him back is TOS or something. I don't know. I've defended Vaush quite a lot recently over some of the recent drama, but I just really fucking disagree with him on these takes. I just do not think, I don't know if I really. I kind of believe in stochastic terrorism somewhat, but like, I don't like the way we invoke it all the time. So I don't know if I'd go that far with it. You know, if someone did a shooting of some rightoids and they quoted Vaush in the manifesto, I might be like, oh shit, damn, this is looking a bit rough now. But until that happens, I'm a bit more like, I disagree, and I think that this is way too far. But people say it's like dangerous and stuff. I don't know if I agree it's dangerous personally. Some of you might disagree with me on that. I mean, the biggest reason I don't think it's honest. I misspoke. Fuck you. The reason I don't think it's like a big threat is because, you know, let's be honest, a lot of the people that watch Vaush haven't got the wherewithal to make a phone call to their bank to contest an overdraft charge. So I don't know if they'd be able to go and buy a gun. But
we have, especially in that situation, because here's, again, you go to me. We tried liberals, and it didn't work. Republicans are about to win. But you understand as much as I do, true progressives are not in power right now. And if that's what we are fighting for, I think progressivism has a very popular appeal. And if we dominated in power and undid, you know, any bad things that they were doing and destroyed them. Now, I know what you're saying. If you're unraveling democracy,
2024, the outcome I'm describing, where they control like every element of government, isn't an unlikely one. I think it's actually more likely than any other possibility. And they've been pretty openly anti-democratic for a while. So once that happens, if they start passing federal legislation to make it more difficult for Democrats to win in the future, whether we're talking like big redistricting or they full on ban like mail-in voting and then like restrict laws about intimidation at the voter place because they know their white boys are going to show up and keep black people from voting in Atlanta, whatever crap like that, you know, what do you do? Because you're not going to win in 2026, right? Like they're preventing you from winning in 2026.
The first thing is definitely just, I don't know how you would answer that. So I guess you can answer afterwards, because definitely
yeah, I mean, you know, the genocide stuff is pretty spicy, but I think, you know, for the criticisms I've got, he is saying it's like a defense. I mean, the pickup truck thing was a bit fucking weird, okay? But I'll give some level of, and I'll say, yeah, he's saying like defensively, right? Like, I don't know if this is going to lead, I mean, I don't know if this is going to invigorate someone to take action in the same way that, you know, far-right rhetoric would. I just think Vaush needs to moderate. I think that some of this is like, the concept of getting a gun to defend yourself is obviously fine. I don't have a massive issue with that. It's just about moderating a bit some of the stuff he's saying, because even people in this chat, I think, seemingly have got like a fairly extreme position. And all I can think is it because this is your media diet? You know? Like, if this is your media diet, I'm not surprised that you're going to come away with this terror.
Form of violence isn't going to make it better. It's just going to have
Wait, let me turn this off. There we go.
more justification for them to crack down even harder. The second thing is, we've seen already there's tons of anti-democratic type laws.
Thank you. Keep them coming.
It can be overcome. And we saw with, and then the last point I'll make, and I would love to hear you answer what you would prescribe. We definitely aren't to a place yet where even the Republican Party, as crazy as they are, feels like they can do on a federal level a certain level of wacko crazy stuff, or else they're going to lose public opinion completely. Trump was in power, and still legislatively, what crazy stuff did they do? Just a really dumb tax cut bill. I mean,
he never lost public opinion, and nothing he did ever lost him any public opinion. Like every crazy thing he did and said, his support was unwavering. Okay. Republicans don't care.
None of that was foundational, except for at the very end.
You could be executed on live TV by Trump himself, and they would all vote for him the next day. This is what I mean.
You're just wrong.
No,
you know how?
I'm not. No, I'm
yes,
absolutely not. His approval his approval rating did not move.
You're wrong.
No, right now.
Do you remember how low it was when he left office? And it wasn't that low.
Amidst Republicans?
January 6th.
Amidst Republicans? And where is it right now?
It's still really high. I have no clue, but really high.
Yeah, it's very high.
80+%.
They don't care. Republicans do not care. And if you really think they wouldn't, wait, hold on. Do you really think, because you keep saying,
I feel like aren't there like some hardcore like never Trump Republicans? I know some of them came around in the end, but there are some like Republicans that are like super anti-Trump, right? That like are very like, and you know, voters particularly. Like the Lincoln Project's a good example. Yeah, as cringe as they are.
Saying stuff to me which indicates that this is more of like an emotionality thing, not some principled understanding of the political system. Because you said the Republicans aren't at a point where they could pass some crazy stuff that could influence the democracy. The Republicans
and still win a federal election? Correct.
They'd already won the federal election. The Republicans can do whatever they want if they hold all three branches. It wouldn't matter what the voters cared afterwards.
Okay, so yeah, you're saying that the hypothetical you posed to me is because the way you laid it out was like they did more stuff like they've done in states, which we could overcome that in the next election if they mirrored what they've been trying to do on a
Federally,
statewide.
in
But if you're saying they got rid of
2024
democracy federally, of course, obviously now it's time for a revolution.
Okay.
But
So wait, so how do you
people to
so,
vote? Yeah,
so wait,
okay,
how do
sorry.
you so at that point,
Mhm.
like when?
When what?
There's not just going to be an anti-democracy law, you know.
That's my point, though. Let's say that Trump got back in office, so he has 2 years, and he kept the House and the Senate. Which, if they got in power in 2022, by 2024, if they could keep that power, that's a whole other question. But let's say they did. Okay, all 3 branches held by Republicans. What you're saying is they're already in power; they can do whatever they want. And I'm saying they know that if they go too far, they will lose public opinion. That's why Trump lost, because he sucked it up
With
in a much different ways.
No, they don't care about mainstream Republican opinion. They care about the opinion of their constituency.
But just the base
Republicans
won't.
support it. The base supports everything they do.
Yes, agreed, 100%. But that's not going to win them an
If
election.
American democracy is hinged on whether or not you believe the Republicans will continue to vote for Republicans after they attempt to undermine a democracy, they already did. Republicans are going to come out just as strong in 2024 despite the coup.
No, you said they're in power, and so they can just boom do whatever they want. You're never going to get in power again.
I think his chat largely agree with him, which kind of makes sense. But yeah,
saying for them to keep the layer on top of their base that allows them to win federal elections, because their base is not enough of the country for them to win another federal election. But if they did stuff that would turn off this block of people,
it won't matter. They'll have already won.
Right. Okay. So then you're saying that means in 2 years before the next midterm, you're saying they would pass stuff that would actually pretty much kill democracy.
What midterm? If they
2024 to 2026.
What midterm? I don't think you understand, and this is why I use the rhetoric that I do. We're up. Time's up. They attempted a coup in the last election, and they still believe it was right to do so. We're already in the point in the history books where it's getting near too late to do anything. You're talking about, well, if they revoked our democracy in 2024, by 2026, the Republicans that have supported everything they've ever done up to this point would suddenly lose faith. No, Tucker Carlson will talk every single day and night about how anti-democratic it is, that it's not possible for Klan members to protest outside of voting booths in black neighborhoods. They will talk endlessly about how the new wave of preliminary voting is an attack on our democracy and so on and so forth. They'll talk about how new redistricting laws are necessary to preserve the foundation. We won't get another chance here. And the problem that I have, you say if they get rid of our democracy, oh, then we have a revolution. You won't know the democracy is gone until 8 years after it was too late, because we're already right there. The clock's ticking to midnight, and you're talking about how the moderate Republicans wouldn't vote for them after they ended democracy. This is what I'm concerned about. You need to be more like me.
Okay, stop it. That was very inspirational. I'm obviously not depending on a certain. Oh, I really hope that Republicans all of a sudden wake up. No, it's stupid. I'm saying that as we saw in 2020, when the Republicans stray away from broad appeal too much, they lose. They have, record turnout, all that good stuff. What we haven't done is effectively legislate or effectively be in power. And I do get your point a little bit of like walking and chewing gum at the same time. But the only way that we can pressure the politicians / get new politicians who will effectively govern so that majority of the country goes, well, obviously we want them in power.
What did Trump win on in 2016?
Obviously there was tons of bigotry they spoke to, all that type of stuff. But then there was a big portion of people who supported him because they thought he was anti-establishment, going to bring back our outsourced jobs, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Why?
I mean, it was pretty much, that was...
Oh, hey, Annie, how's it going? I was thinking about you, actually. I was wondering what your take on this would be. He's got a point there, but I certainly disagreed with a lot of Vaush's rhetoric in this conversation. Don't think Luke deserved this treatment. Yeah, this Luke, it's worth saying as well, this Luke guy seems like a pretty chill dude. Seems like a reasonable guy as well. Yeah. I don't think he's not getting it as bad as other people maybe, but he's getting a bit of like a terse interaction. Well, he doesn't deserve it. He's just sort of saying like, "Hey, call your jets." I feel like all he's saying is, "Call your jets, bro." And he's getting a little bit of a, a little bit fucking lit up by Vaush and also the chat too.
Definitely a part of it. He didn't do anything to that effect. He didn't really do anything. And then after the presidency ended...
Wait, people like Luke are going to get us killed? I'll tell you what's going to get you killed, right? It's taking pot shots at some fucking pickup truck full of rightoid dipshits. That's probably going to get you killed. More so than what this dude's saying. Jesus.
Republicans still support him. He ran mostly on the wall.
He
That was
lost,
like
though,
that was a
in
big part, the
2020.
Muslim ban. He got more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016.
And Biden got more than that.
Yes. So what happens when the Democrats don't get more than the Republicans? Because the Republicans have only ever increased their support. You keep saying if they do something crazy, moderate Republicans will lose support. No, they didn't. Trump had 4 years to act like a lunatic, and then more
Yes,
Republicans
Magnum.
voted for him.
this
Democrats
is my
only
point.
have to
They
lose
did-
once.
he-
This is
he
why
acted like a-
Democrats don't stop fascism. They abate it temporarily. They're like a wall that you build because
No,
they're
we
not
need a
willing to-
radical, progressive.
You're not
movement
getting
slash
it.
Revolution.
You're
but it's
not
not.
getting it.
Yeah,
You're
go
getting
for it.
bullets. You're not getting a progressive revolution. Okay, Bernie lost. We're
If
not
you think-
getting progressives in the House
Okay,
and in the
if
Senate in
you honestly
2022.
think that it's more likely that we can get a mass movement of people that overrun the political body and get in power and squash the current Republican movement for good. If you think that's less likely,
Yeah, listen, does someone want to give Redundant Toaster a sub? Come on. I have to agree with Vaush because the other guy looks like he's in a boy band. Yeah, I base my decision on who I listen to as to how, based on their appearance, how likely they are to be in a boy band. That's a good way of doing it. I like that.
then getting a mass movement of people ready to clash in the streets with far right wingers.
I'm only saying we have to be
You're
ready
off
for
your
when it does
rocker.
happen. And by the way, again, you
You're
think
off
this is
your
a
rocker.
mutually-
Everyone-
you
yeah,
keep saying
sure.
this is a mutually exclusive thing. It's
It
not.
is,
No, it's not. No,
because-
it's not. No matter how much
Yeah.
you may believe it, the delusion that you can either be electorally effective or like militant, but you can't be both, is just wrong. Republicans have proven it wrong. Democrats in the past have proven it wrong. It's not true. You can vote.
Vaush wouldn't be in a boy band. Vaush would be in like a heavy metal band or something. There's no way. Are you kidding me? You saying this dude would be in a boy band? No way. He'd either be in some metal band or he'd be playing synth in some some synth pop band probably.
You can advocate. You can be
playing
electorally
bass
effective.
probably
Go
more
appeal
likely.
to the moderate centrist base. But I'll tell you what people vote on. They vote on fear. More than anything else, people vote when they're afraid. That's why Biden got so many votes, because they were afraid of Trump. And we need to start putting the fear of fascism in people in this country. You want electoral effectiveness? There you go. That's how Republicans get their vote. Tucker Carlson talks every night about how the country is going to die at the hands of immigration. You want people brought over and voting blue? They need to understand that it's milquetoast liberal Democrats or a boot on their neck. I am both militant and electorally effective in this respect. And if more liberals were, we wouldn't have to worry about the Republicans because they'd be treated like the radical brigand group that they are. But
No,
instead,
if more
liberals go,
people
oh no, if we defeat them, their ideas are bad.
Okay, right. I've got an idea. We got the Democrats in charge of the nuclear football. Nuke the Republicans. Why is no one talking about that? Nuke the Republicans. Nuke every red state. That'll sort the problem out. Easy peasy.
Sincerely, if we understand that people, they'll be moved over by our arguments. No, they won't. Nothing
That's
you and I
exactly-
say
We
will
will start with Texas until morale improves.
move
Referenced
Republicans
earlier
over.
the civil rights movement. Don't you think that as a person existing in the 1960s or 1950s, that would 100% be a time where like, wow, we could be headed towards something really bad. A really large portion of this country wants us to be suffering.
That was like the era of
indefinitely.
militant leftism. So I don't know why
And-
you're bringing that up as though it's a counter to my argument.
And what squashed that movement, not for good, but what squashed it
Eyes
and
on
what
ya.
got lasting change was a movement that had broad appeal. And I guess what you could be saying, and I could agree, I guess we could come to some agreement. For me, the way that I think about all of this is, like a broad progressive movement. And maybe what you're saying is the role that you play in that movement is making a certain portion of people who identify as progressive understand the potential violence in the future.
I
and
think
they
a
need
lot
to
of
be ready
people
for it.
understand. I think that if
Hey,
I
Magnum,
could have
thank
a
you.
conversation with an average American, an independent, like maybe,
But-
yeah. What are the
Sorry.
Republicans doing? Everything they do, it's a lead up. It's very clear what they're doing. You can have a convo with them, put the fear of God in them. I can't make them like Democrats, but I sure as hell can make them hate Republicans. And the Republicans deserve their hate. They do it. They earn
No,
it.
this is what's going to happen. Okay. Every single person who isn't exactly where you are is going to look, because I've met so many people recently who are watching the current Republican Party and they're like, ah, that's terrible. That's just, what the heck? And if they turn and the king of our movement is Vaush and he's like, they're demons. And dude, some of your rhetoric was 100% what I see right wingers do when like dog whistling for violence. Like Tucker Carlson's thing where he says,
They're effective.
why wouldn't a dad go in and hit an LGBTQ teacher or whatever?
Well, the critical difference
similar.
there is that
And-
he's encouraging violence against LGBTQ teachers, and I'm talking about fascists who are trying to kill
Right, and if I had to
LGBTQ
pick one, I
people.
would pick yours because yours is somewhat defensive in nature. But
Somewhat.
when
Wait,
is defensive in nature.
somewhat?
No, listen, wait, before you go off on a big thing, I'm saying that the way that you portrayed it, of course, when you lay it out like you just did, okay, we're just waiting for something crazy to happen and then we'll be ready. The way that you laid it out in your initial video was like, not explicitly saying go harm people, but as close to that as I hear other people doing. And so while the underlying logic is definitely defensive, I think encouraging people to violence in general is something that we don't want broadcasted in our movement, because a lot of...
Hey, thanks a lot for the sub. Hey, can we get a hype train going? It's been a little while since we've had a hype train up in here.
People are going to see that and go, okay, that's also too radical. And that's when people get complacent. But when you offer an amazing alternative movement that a lot of people can get on board with, and it isn't fascistic, people will join that. And that's what, as sad as I am to say this, because obviously I don't think he was the ideal candidate, that's why Biden won, is people were like, whoa, Trump's crazy. And they turned, and Biden, even though a lot of it was just offered a pretty good alternative vision.
Nope, you're completely wrong. People voted for him because he was the most electable candidate. He won.
If he was also saying
were afraid
crazy wacko stuff, they would
Trump.
not have gone in and vote.
He won because people were afraid of Trump. People weren't voting for him because they were excited about what he had to say. It's because they were terrified of another Trump presidency.
And what is it about this lower jaw structure and being a conservative mom? You know what I'm talking about? The physiognomy, this physiognomy does not exist within progressives. Like you could look like ignore like there's you can see an American flag on the hat. Oh no. My cam is blocking it for you guys. This face cannot contain progressive values. You know what I mean? It's the diet pills.
I think
she looks like a berserk skeleton. I'm not trying to skinny shame or whatever, but there's something.
This is like just edgy memeing, I think. What's this next one though?
The people who watch me are like urbanite types, like you live in your big cities and yada yada. And I think it's important to be reminded every once in a while that conservatives are psychopaths, and they're just evil, and they're different from us morally. They're a different type of human, a worse type. Really though, seriously, you can see this in real life if you ever want to. If you ever want to just like get evidence of this in real life, go to any conservative protest in your city at any point. It's low risk. Like the likelihood of you getting like attacked just attending one of these is just like really, really, really low, especially if you keep your mouth shut. But you can go there and like they're really weird, you know? Obviously the kind of people who will show up at a protest are always going to be like a little more kind of weird than the people who just sort of passively have their political positions. But if you have any protest where there are people on either side, like conservatives and progressives or anything like that, like usually progressives at a protest are pretty normal people. Seriously. You're going to see an overrepresentation of like queer people because they tend to be overrepresented progressive groups, so they tend to be more visible in like the protest. Like you're going to see pink hair and piercings or whatever, but like talk to them and they're really friendly. Like in my experience, like overwhelmingly friendly people, you know. But all the time, especially religious conservative protests, they are freaky, freaky bug people. They are freaky, what do you call it? What's the term? Uncanny valley human beings, you know. These freaks. And by the way, nothing inherent, but they grow up into it. What do you think a person raised in a cult is going to be like, right? Like, do you think that doesn't have an effect on how they are? Of course it does. It's genuinely like a strong elicitor of sympathy for me. You look at that and it's like, wow, these people could have been fucking normal, but they're not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like part of that is joking, but also like, I think any protest you're going to get weirdos, right? Can we just cut to the chase here? If you think every fucking Black Lives Matter protester was some paragon of fucking coolness, you've got another thing coming, okay? There's a reason those rightoids share those mugshots of people like Antifa types or whatever that get arrested, because there's some fucking weirdos there. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't really know. I've never been to a protest in America before, obviously. But yeah. I feel like he's always been like this with conservatives. He's always been pretty hardline in his rhetoric.
About right now is a self-perpetuating issue. You know, liberals are terrified of the realization that they share this country with monsters who would have them killed. Well, that's tough, but we have to grow up. We have to learn that. And fear motivates, and it's legitimate fear. This isn't like a Tucker Carlson fear-mongering where he makes shit up so that his billionaire masters can get away with another tax cut. This is like climate change type fear, real stuff, really happening. People should be afraid. They should act in that fear. We've been trying to get people afraid of climate change for years and years and years, and you know what? We've done a terrible job of it. In large part because a bunch of people in this country think that it's God's given rapture, and they think opposing it is, sacrilegious. But also because liberals just aren't cut out for the fear game. They're weak and spineless and made of jelly. But it can be improved. It's possible to improve. The French resistance in World War II wasn't just liberals, it wasn't just leftists, it was liberals. It was centrists, moderates even. They were united in a hatred of fascism, and they fought and they died to irritate the Nazi occupants. We need that energy. If we're going to concede this, people aren't engaging with this, they're going to kill us rhetoric, then we're already dead. We need to...
Because that's not something that...
Then make it appealing to them. Make them see.
There has to be some factual basis to it. And
there is, and that's your problem.
Okay, but I don't know. How do you make the idea? How do you make it that, hey, there's a genocide coming and we need to defend ourselves? I don't know. I just feel like it's like, I don't know if that's really going to convince anyone except your own side that already believe it.
Basis to a mass killing of Americans.
Do you know how genocides happen?
By the Republican Party.
There is. Do you know how genocides take place? We're already at dehumanizing language of degenerates who are being convinced and groomed into their degeneracy by an elite cabal of economic... It's the Nazis.
How many times have we seen that language that didn't lead to a genocide?
I'm sorry.
You know how long people have been getting called degenerate?
Do you know how many precursors there are to the current wave of anti-LGBT media attention?
I feel like I said earlier, two fellas holding hands in the street used to be unthinkable, right? Something as simple as that. Just two gay fellas walking along, showing a very limited, a very low sign of affection, was enough for them to get the shit kicked out of them. And it wouldn't have, people might have been a bit shocked, but on the whole, people would be like, oh yeah, whatever. They literally called AIDS the fucking gay plague. What was the name for it? GRID, gay related, whatever it was. They literally called it the gay plague. It's insane. And I think that we're so much further along that I'm just very skeptical about the idea that it's as bad as Vaush is saying it is. The Weimar Republic was pretty fucking progressive. Are you telling me that you think in 1920s Germany was as progressive as America is today? You are fucking delusional. You kidding me?
And legislation, because we have the 1980s, which was when Reagan let hundreds of thousands of gay people die by preventing the CDC from doing any research into AIDS. So that was a genocide. The last time this happened was a genocide.
Even in that moment, we would have been further from progress if the backlash to that was... I'm still unclear on... Okay, actually...
Exactly. It was progressive for the time, which is great, but there's no way it's more progressive than America is today.
Great question. That happens. What is the Vaush response to that? Because you kind of got oh no, that's not what I said. Whenever I didn't mean to make your voice sound annoying there. Whenever I said, okay, so go kill politicians, and it's no, of course not. It's defense. Well, then what in that example? If that's a genocide, what is the response that is
if your bar is sex reassignment surgery, that? I'm fairly certain that there were some cultures which had sex reassignment surgery, but were still pretty shitty to LGBT people back in the day. I don't know if that's a good bar to set, because there's probably some society you could point to where they had sex reassignment surgery. What about eunuchs? What about fucking eunuchs? Do you know, I found this out the other day. Eunuchs, they stank a piss. Did you know that? Because when they got their full dick cut off, it caused urinary issues. So they used to, piss themselves without being able to control it. So they used to stink a piss. And so there was some meme about how eunuchs stank a piss back in the olden days. Did you know that? I found that out watching a video about eunuchs the other day. So little update for you.
More revolutionary.
What are you trying to do?
Well, eunuchs is a generic term, but there's two. There's obviously where you get just your balls cut off and you keep the dick, and then there's full on shaft removed too, and you just have a little hole there. And I think some cultures prefer to do it that way. Well, I was watching it because it popped up on my feed, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll find out all about Unix. So yeah.
A channel ban. When people are
Say it
being
in
killed,
a dog whistly
when
way.
people, that's not a dog whistle. When people are being killed by the hundreds of thousands, do you seriously think it's unethical to use violence to defend yourself? Do you really think that's unethical? Would it have been
I
unethical
don't think
for the
I
Jews
actually
to
don't
fight
think
back?
it's unethical. I think it's okay. You bring up that example. Of course, in that situation, we can see how violence not only is the only option, but then also could lead us to where we want to go. I'm asking you, in the example of AIDS in the 80s, is that going to take us forward in the most effective way? Your
If you commit hard enough,
ethical, even if it's ethical.
if you commit, of course it's ethical. And if you commit hard enough, anything is possible. I'll ask you, do you think, would you have been chiding the Jews for fighting back in, say, 31, even if you knew through some prophetic ability that their attempts at fighting back would have been ineffective? Because it seems
No,
like you're
of course
only
not.
telling me
There
that
was-
self-defense is justifiable if you can know the future and know that it will work for sure.
Jesus.
It's possible that there's nothing we can
Back
do.
here.
This might be a pointless conversation. It's possible that the dominoes have already begun to fall. We're not going to stop Republicans from winning, and no amount of violent counteraction is going to prevent them from overriding our democracy. It might be too late. So at this point, I've seen decades of liberal messaging and centrist, oh, bring them over, shit fail. I just think we're past that point. I think we're at the point now where we have to recognize.
There's never been an actual progressive movement that, like a Bernie-style progressive movement that rose up thus far.
It's too late. In 2024, that's the next election. We don't have time for progressives to win, to take over the Democratic Party and win the House and the
agree.
Senate
It's
and the presidency.
Crazy, alarmist. Of course, we should be raising all of the red flags, but there's no way in which people being ready for violence. The only thing that's going to do, I'm okay with people getting a gun in case something ever happens, of course.
Oh, there you go.
Second Amendment. Gosh, you're killing me. You think I'm someone that I'm not. But there's not an outcome that I can see that has been explained in a logical way where we express our ambition to conduct violence if needed, and that helps us win the election or something, or it helps us after the election.
Why is this
Take out
being framed
individuals.
in electoral terms for you? This is about life and death.
You just asked 2024.
2024 is done. We've already,
No.
2024 is a coin flip. Maybe something happens between now and then, but whatever outcomes are going to take place from direct action aren't going to have a significant impact in 2024. I'm talking about what happens no matter who wins that election. Maybe a Dem wins 2024. Maybe we have to wait till 2028 for this to be relevant. I don't know. We're probably going to lose pretty hard in 2022, though, so that's going to be, we're not going to get anything done even if we win in 2024. But eventually, they're going to get a hold on us. They've been redistricting like hell. Every single time they undo something, Democrats don't have the power to redo. We need to be ready. And I have to ask you, just out of curiosity, when in Germany would you have said violence was okay?
I'm definitely not familiar enough with the timeline.
Do you know what this reminds me of? This this reminds me of when righthoods are like, when would you think it would be good to take the guns away from the Jews? Like, do you know what I mean? It's giving me like the same vibes. I don't know. He's got to fucking chill. He's got to fucking chill. What's going on?
So I can't give specifics. But obviously, I do think violence was justified at certain points. Like at a certain point, it definitely would have been. But for example, if I were to make a comparison, because we didn't know the future, when just racist things were being said about Jewish Germans, if Jews started going out and just, again, I'm not clear on even what
What about arming up?
is.
Wait, hold
I
on.
just
I'm
said
just
that's
saying
totally
getting
fine.
ready. So I'm only saying
It's
getting
not
ready.
at all what you. Okay.
No, that's what I'm saying. Getting ready.
Perfect. I'm totally okay for everybody to get a firearm as long as they are very safe with it.
Well, sure, they shouldn't be unsafe, but that's not an
But in-
exaggeration. Getting ready to defend yourself. That's what I've been saying. So they can do that. What about when the German government started passing laws of restriction on Jewish people and businesses? Like specifically designating Jewish.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably watch this for another like 5 or 10 minutes, but I feel like we're just going to kind of loop round again and again, and I don't really have much more to add. But obviously, I just disagree with the extreme ways this is being phrased. But yeah.
Jewish people as a separate legal category alongside dehumanizing rhetoric in order to
in order to categorize them separately and limit their movement, oppress them in a variety of ways. That plus dehumanizing language plus hate crimes start to rise against them. In that environment, because that's where we are right now with trans people. That exact point is where we are. In that environment, do you think it's unfair to go like, yeah, you should be like ready if they come for you, like they are getting ready for something and you need to be ready, you need to arm yourself?
I saw it, Magnum, already.
Again, I already said I think it's fair to just say everyone, be ready for anything. But in the case of trans people,
For anything.
seeing a very but that's not the focus of your commentary. Your commentary isn't like just be ready in case anything happens, but be super safe. It was like, let's go. They want us all dead. That was one of your quotes.
Do you think it would be inappropriate for the Jews to have said that back in the early 30s? They want us dead, the Nazis want us all dead. They were right.
I don't know the specifics of the build up to World War II enough to compare it to our current situation.
Well, the Night of Broken Glass happened in 38, like a year before the war. But the mechanisms for the Holocaust were laid well before that point, 33, 34, you have a political party in power. You really telling me back in like 34 or whatever, when all the precursors I've described to you were in place, they were saying something like, yeah, the Nazis are evil, they want you dead. And you would go in and say, hey, come on. You really think you're going to convince Nazis with rhetoric like that? Like, And
that's a great thing. It's nothing like, or not nothing. It's not equal to what we're seeing now, because like in the case of trans people, increasingly people are totally on board. And I can tell you, every single person that I've talked to who has like an icky belief on how we should be treating trans people in society, it's from being misinformed on what is going on. Most of it is like, oh, I'm really scared because I think that little kids are going into class and teachers are saying, you're not a boy, you're a girl, you're not a boy, you're a girl, until they turn into a girl. Like,
that's what they thought about the Jews.
Oh, no one's advocating for that. And right now we have the people on our side, and then there's this fringe that's
same in Germany. Germany was a very progressive place before.
Wait, who did that poll?
The Weimar Republic. Not as progressive.
What the hell is that? What the hell is that poll? Would Jews be just? Who did this poll? This looks like a bit of a soy poll, I've got to say.
You're saying that Germany wasn't? You're saying that Hitler and the Nazis was not a popular movement?
No, the Germany Nazis only had initially support of like 25 to 30% of the population. They seized power anti-democratically, and through seizing control of education and the means of propaganda, they convinced a larger and larger group of Germans of the general political aims, misinforming them. Some of the stuff they'd like to say about Jews were that they were effete intellectuals who would corrupt their children through degenerate messaging designed to destroy Western civilization. It was not a popular movement to begin with. They seized power anti-democratically. You know how many people are Republicans in the US? About 30%. Everything is set up. And the Germans and the Nazis were not any more intrinsically anti-Jewish to begin with than modern Republicans are against trans people. Maybe you can convince one or two.
It's like he's just going, well, this was 30%. This is 30%. Put two and two together. Like, what? It just seems a bit like, oh.
Two or three or four, but every night Tucker Carlson speaks to an audience of millions. I'm sorry, at a certain point, look, maybe everything works out, but past a certain point, not saying you need to be...
Who did this fucking soy-ass poll? Seriously. Jesus, who's fucking in chat? Jesus, I'm annoyed with that.
Ready is just...
I disavow this poll, and I hope you added bits. You better have added fucking bits, I tell you what.
Responsible.
Okay, and I already agreed. You can totally say you need to be ready. Your, what I am kind of addressing is very different than just you need to be ready. But I do think... even in the case that you're talking about, I hate doing this because it's like the most extreme case, and definitely lack of knowledge there. But if
fascists want the left to engage in terrorism because it gives them an excuse to be authoritarian, I think everyone just needs to chill the fuck out, okay?
Early on, when they started slandering Jewish people, if there's a bunch of Jewish people who started enacting violence or kind of promoting really violent rhetoric, even though I think it would be justified and moral, I don't think even you would believe that would have helped them. That would have caused it all to seem more justified. And that's why I'm really scared about going around saying Republicans are demons and human flesh.
The Holocaust happened
anyone
anyway.
Who's like a little soft-hearted liberal is going to be like, oh, that seems so crazy. Like, I definitely don't want to be a part of that movement.
When the Holocaust happened anyway, you can't really go back in time and be like, well, if you'd been more violent, a second Holocaust would have, like the Holocaust 2 would have happened. No, actually, I think that something would have changed if Jews back then had simply armed themselves and then killed all of the Nazi party, And there were attempts to do that, but I mean full on, kick down the door, gun them all down, maybe they get arrested.
Okay, again, boom, you just said it.
Okay, whoa, killing Nazis? Wait, are we against killing Nazis here?
totally on board. I'm saying right there, you're making a comparison. So then,
No,
and you
I've made
deny
nothing.
this is
Whoa,
what you wanted.
I have made no allegation.
He's being fucking like clearly. Look, come on. We know what he's. Why does he have to be so like? You know? Oh no, I'm not. So yes, you fucking are. Yes, you fucking are. Jesus, man, what the fuck?
Allegories in this conversation, okay?
What's an allegory?
No comparisons, analogies, none whatsoever. But yes,
What?
the
That's what
Jews.
we're talking about. We're comparing. Yes, you.
No,
okay,
we're not.
like,
No, this is unrelated. They're
Stop
the
it.
Jews might have been successful in preventing
Yeah,
their
okay,
own
and
extermination. Wait, do you agree? Wait, do you
Hey,
agree
thank you for joining the game.
that while they're facing legal persecution, an anti-democratic party is seizing additional power, the Jews, say 33, 34, if they had hatched some plot to gun down Hitler, Goebbels, some Nazi upper party meeting, say it's like Inglourious Bastards,
for the
they get
bitch.
invited to a theater and all just get gunned down in the final act, something like that, would that have been wrong? Might have stopped the Holocaust.
Morally,
and World War
probably
II.
not. But if, again, we're talking about how this can be compared
Wait,
to our current situation. No, stop. I'm
Morally,
talking.
do you think it would have been?
No,
But
Vaush,
would
stop
it have been
talking.
practical? Because it would have killed
It doesn't
leadership.
sound okay. If you think if they could have effectively wiped out all the Nazi leadership, then maybe practically, yeah, that would have done something. But I don't think right now, because the comparison you don't want to make now that you said that is that's what some progressive group should do to Republican leadership.
When would I even imply that? So let's say that
Then what are we talking about Germany
let's say
for?
in Nazi Germany. So the assassination of political leadership is a very effective way at destabilizing a political movement. That's
So
just.
then make it. So then apply it to our current situation.
Well,
Go.
wait, hold on. I'm just trying to figure out what your threshold is for the Nazis, the ones that we can talk about. Okay, so with the Nazis, we have the precursor to a genocide being constructed. These people are evil.
Who would you kill in the Republican Party? Like, come on, let's call a spade a spade. Who would you even kill in the Republican Party that would crush the movement dead? Like, what? Who would you kill? Like, if it's that pervasive, like, who are you going to kill? I don't know. Thanks for all these activations coming through. I appreciate it. Okay. And if you killed a bunch of like righty politicians, yeah, would that not galvanize the survivors to like be more extreme and push further to the right to protect themselves? I don't know.
They want Jews dead, blah, blah, blah. At what point, because the alt fiction, what if like a resistance group had killed Hitler before the Holocaust? This is something liberals have been jerking off to for almost a century now. When would it have been acceptable if that assassination had led to destabilization, internal tumult, and then eventually like a restoration of democracy? It would have been messy, I'm sure, but better than World War II.
Again, it would all depend on if they pass. Like, I'm not familiar with the timeline, but if they passed a law that's hurting, Jewish businesses, like you said, Jewish individuals, and all of a sudden, like, but it's the practical thing. If you could actually magically wipe out all of Nazi leadership,
Do you think it's like impossible?
maybe that could be ethical. But
do you think it's impossible to
very,
like,
very difficult for a small minority to wipe out a governing body?
There are examples all the time of a government seizes power, and then shortly afterwards, the leadership of that government is killed by insurgents or radicals or by a conflicting faction, and then there's an internal power struggle and someone else takes power. I don't think anyone worse than the Nazis could take power. That's pretty much like the worst. That's about as bad as it gets. So whoever would have taken power afterwards probably wouldn't have done the Holocaust and probably wouldn't have started World War II. Or at the very least, when those things happened, it would have been like a much less.
The other thing too is, from my understanding, you can correct me on this, Hitler was much more of a sole leading force that constructed this whole movement around him. And so I do think practically if you could have gotten him, maybe no one else had the specific ambition to do, mass genocide,
well, you had a
but they
cult of
still would treat them
personality.
poorly and all those type of things. We do, but if you took out Trump, which practically,
Whoa.
if you,
I don't believe in political violence. Come on.
no, we don't, sorry, agreed.
I think that
if-
both of them were about comparable in the extent that like there were other political forces that wanted power, and through him they were able to achieve it because he was like a
my
populist.
point is,
Yeah, I think if there's a like the left away, like there's literal right wing militias that fucking organize and do shit right now. Like, if this is really the idea, you got some fucking work to do. Like, Jesus, like you say, some of these people have been shooting before they could walk. And what, some terminal online Twitter leftoid is gonna, you know, be able to shoot a fucking scent out of the air with a pistol? Like, come on, get real.
Even
It's
if
like
Trump decides not to run, we'll say it that way. If he decides not to run in 2024, there's still a whole movement separate from him. There's so many individuals who could lead the current MAGA movement
I'm
without Trump a part of that.
talking about
Whereas-
Germany.
Right, and so then stop it. I'll stop with the possibly, you know, against TOS language.
No.
apologize.
I just, because you have to be in the ground game, right? We're in the ground game right now. Right now, we have the benefit of looking back on the Nazis and thinking, oh, maybe if this chess piece had been moved here. But if you were there, I mean, at what point do you get to thinking, wow, the Nazis are really bad and they're not going to be dislodged through any kind of civil protest? We should just kill them. At
But
what
you-
point?
Yes, okay, but you have to understand.
And they're quite a bit of our lefts in my local SRA, and they're pretty damn good with gun safety and such. You are fucking deluding yourself if you think your little fucking SRA friends, okay, are going to compare to the absolute fucking volume of rightoid militias that exist out there. You are fucking delusional. What? They're armed to the teeth.
There would be a point I would need to, first of all, it'd be helpful to have been there, but then also I would have to, for this conversation, read a lot more into the things that were happening to tell you where that line is. But if we could get away from that, because what I'm concerned with right now is the here and now in the United States. What is it that is all, again, I feel like your language was similar to the language people would maybe use feeling justified in the example we're just talking about Nazi Germany, and it was similar to what we're talking about here in your rhetoric, but then I feel like where you want that rhetoric to go is not at all equal. And so then it's kind of like, okay, well then if all you're saying is, hey, maybe you have the right to bear arms, get a gun just in case. Okay, that's kind of boring.
I want people
I'm fine with that.
to...
But I think all of our political capital and energy and what we should be broadcasting is a
message of
radical
fear
revolution that's progressive but
and
non
terror. We're not going to get the ideal political leader, but we do have the ideal enemy, so we should be focusing on them. This is what the Democrats don't understand. Republicans don't talk about what they want to do. They talk about what the Democrats are doing. They get people motivated through fear. And Democrats only ever talk about their own positions. Oh, well, we want to do this, that. Nobody cares, and nobody gives a fuck about politics.
So
What
they could
people
do
care
way
about
better with political marketing, 100%.
with
but
terror.
also,
Deserved terror.
But
This
you-
isn't lying. We don't have to
they
lie.
definitely fear-mongered about Trump, for sure. And
Not even close to
in a
enough.
good way.
And not...
Maybe not enough, but
not
they
enough.
don't just talk about what they do because they don't barely do anything.
But Biden didn't even talk about Clarence Thomas, his wife.
Yes, because Biden is so
A
far
pussy.
up the like Washington club booty hole that of course he doesn't want to speak out.
That's
against
what
his
we've
little
got.
business.
Yeah, that's what we're dealing with right
and
now.
that is so far from what I'm talking about as well. We're both very far from that, and you're trying to group me in with the
No.
Bidens.
I'm not saying you're just
ideology.
like him. I'm sure you're far farther left than him. I'm only saying that we're not getting the ideal progressive candidate with the ideal progressive message and the ideal progressive party to back it up. All we have right now is this shit. So I can't convince people that Biden's great. I just can't. But I can convince them legitimately that the Republicans are dangerous. And I need people to fixate on that. And I need them to be armed. And I need their communities armed. No, see, this is, you don't understand.
that's
Because
what
you're,
you
no. This is American exceptionalism. You are of the opinion that it can't happen here. It can happen
No, I'm
here.
not of that opinion.
No,
I'm saying what's
and
the
when
most effective way to prevent it?
When it does, you can do both. When it does, there's nothing mutually exclusive.
You can't, because Vaush,
The Republicans
I-
with the armories are also the ones who vote and go to their local school board meetings. They are not mutually exclusive. The most
But-
militant Republicans are the ones who best serve the party. It's not mutually exclusive. And nor
but
am
for
I.
our movement,
I'm a warrior
first
for
of all,
Biden.
you do understand that the right and the left very different in what appeals.
Yeah, the left is worse. The right understands
and-
that fear and violence are the ways that you control a political
And-
group.
When you say you can do both, it's just like, but we can't, because if I'm talking to my audience, same size as yours. No, if I'm talking to my
Jesus Christ, this is fucking crazy. Oh, I just fucking lost it, man. What's going on? I'm just like... This seems insane.
audience saying, hey, here's some other people you should go watch that we're trying to, unite with. And I suggest a lot of my audience is gonna be like, what the? Well,
Then-
some of the stuff.
Then
they'd
let
agree
them
with.
die.
What the
Then
heck?
they will
What is this?
perish. They have to be
But we're
strong.
not going to be in power because now we don't have large enough of a movement to foundationally prevent
Jesus.
what's going to happen
If-
because we're split among people who are against violence, in their mind, and then you and that kind of ilk, and then we don't have large
You
enough of a movement
are
to.
wrong in believing that people and
empower.
rhetoric like me are harmful to our coalition. Fear is what got people to vote for Biden.
Yes, fear, but they don't want to feel like they're as bad as the other side. Everyone feels that way. You can
You're not.
fearmonger a lot. No, stop. You absolutely should express to people how dangerous the Republican Party, especially certain elements of it, are. But if your rhetoric sounds a whole lot like theirs and what you want to do, now that we know there's a lot of things to be afraid about,
This is an aesthetic concern.
we're not going to grow. That's like your entire job is your aesthetic.
It's a fleeting aesthetic concern. What, we sound like them because they say that they need to go and kill or legally oppress trans people, and I say trans people need to defend themselves against their oppressors.
No one's calling to kill.
If a liberal hears those two things and sounds no different, they deserve to die. When the fascist mob.
You can't
listen.
Because your
A
muscle wasn't
liberal
big enough to actually get in power.
A liberal
you're
is
gonna be a little friend on
Jesus.
the side with your guns, and you're going to be shooting at people. And
It's fucking mental. What's going on? I'm fucking shook. Jesus.
you're gonna die.
Stop. No,
So,
stop.
Wonderful.
I have been exceptionally patient, but I'm going to lose it now.
Do it.
You continue to.
He's literally just saying to prepare in case. Yeah, come on. Yeah, sure. He's saying to prepare in case shit happens. He was alluding to fucking murdering politicians just a second ago. Give me a fucking break. Jesus. It reminded me of fucking, it's like dog whistle shit. Do you know what I mean? No, he's not really saying that, is he? Well, no, he's not saying that exactly, but read between the lines. Come on.
Believe that civility politics is a necessary component of marketing to liberals, and you are doing this by perpetuating the fact that liberal civility politics is necessary to speak with them. If your audience would be turned off by the belief that you should be able to defend yourself against fascism, change
That's
your audience.
not what I'm talking about.
No, you don't understand. You
That's
think
not at all what
what
I'm
you are,
taking issue with.
what you
with you.
are, what you believe is that it harms us in any way to engage in the kind of defensive rhetoric that Republicans have been using successfully for decades. You have fallen for it. You are a psyop. You believe they're telling you they're.
He's basically using doomsday prepper rhetoric and just gesturing at the other part, staying inside TOS really carefully. That's what it comes across like to me. It's a shame. It's a shame that he's gone so fucking like off the deep end with this. I'm just like, bro, like there's a point in there somewhere, right? Defend yourself or whatever. Like, yeah, but this is just like, ooh.
They're whispering in your ear, yes, don't tell them that we're going to kill them. Don't let them believe they need to defend themselves against fascism. You would only hurt your movement by doing the thing that we've done successfully. You're falling for it. You're co-intel pro, my friend. Not really. I don't want to be accused of making these accusations sincerely, but it is frustrating.
So how's it going?
Independents will be
Thank
moved
you.
by the rhetoric they hear. Republicans have moved a lot of people with theirs. It's time for us to wake up, realize
And
we
our
don't
rhetoric
have
is
time.
fucked.
Our rhetoric is fucked because we don't spend enough time
No.
fear-mongering.
I said it sucked. Yes, I totally agree with you. Fear does drive people to the polls, all that type of stuff.
So what do we
But
say?
You have to understand that. I think you would agree to this too. The reason why we don't stay in power is because on the campaign trail, Democrats do a really good job
Who's
of
we?
being
I've never been in
progressive and
power.
They fear. Yeah, yes, obviously. I'm talking about the current Democratic Party. The reason why they get taken out of power is because they actually do a lot or materially improve people's lives a lot or anything. And then, like you mentioned, they're not great at effectively fear mongering. But in the example of the Trump-Biden election, there was a lot to fearmonger about, obviously in the middle of COVID and all that type of stuff. And then Biden did have a pretty...
First, they came for the Kink at Bride discourse, and I did not speak out. Oh, God. Are we going to have Kink at discourse Pride again? You know what I mean?
broad appeal in the message that he was. Because I know you're saying it's not all fear. The reason why you're able to get in power is fear plus something that they can also grab onto. And if all it is like, hey, come join our movement because we want to kill them and they want to kill us, it's like, it's not doing anything. And I think I don't know. I feel like we're just running in circles.
To me, there
yeah,
is no mutually exclusive element here. And the only reason people on the left and center are turned off by my messaging is because they haven't been introduced to enough of it yet. So introduce it to them more. Get them more familiar with it, okay? It's not my fault that the Democratic Party has made it their mission to coddle and weaken their voters to the greatest possible.
No worries, Zonya. You do enough for me as it is, so I won't hold that against you. I didn't expect Chud's chat to be so soy. This isn't a matter of being soy. It's a matter of just being like, hey, this is kind of unhinged, bro. Like, what the fuck? The soy thing is to say there's like there's an imminent genocide of LGBT people being queued up. That's the real soy. They must be updated on like a thing because they come through all at once. Keep them coming though, folks, okay? 124, I'm very pleased.
possible extent. And now you have millions of Americans, these embarrassing, urbanite liberals whose best response to everything the Republicans do to undermine democracy is we'll vote harder next time. No, you won't. You're not going to get to the voting booths. You're not going to get a chance. No political body is effective or relevant without a plan for how to deal with the end of the democracy that their party exists in. The Republicans are ready and waiting. Where the fuck are we?
We don't, for people to even have a chance of sticking around for more than a minute, listening to like that type of rhetoric, they have to believe in the like the foundation of the building that you're building. Because, and by that I mean, they have to believe that democracy is going away. I don't think we're doing a good job of expressing that. They have to believe that there's actually this bloodlust on the right, which I don't think enough. But that's my point. I don't think there's enough evidence to prove to people.
Then you're
the
a
right is
stooge.
planning to kill people.
No, you keep saying kill people. You have a child's
sir.
understanding of how genocide takes place.
I
encourage you, yes, to look up the history of Nazi Germany, because it was apparent from our conversation that you don't have any historical allegories for how genocide takes place. You seem to be waiting on the let's kill people bill.
Okay. Even in the example where I was upfront with, hey, I don't know the timeline, so I can't give you a line. In that case, you also, that's a great thing to talk about. You haven't defined where the line is in either cases, really, and how that compares to our current situation.
The line for what?
Violence.
Another one.
Violence started the moment the declaration was signed. What I'm talking about isn't a beginning to violence. It is a beginning to the defense against violence, which has taken place. We live in a system built by violence, political violence. When cops enact laws passed by political agents acting on the behalf of their corporate masters, they are acting violently. What we're talking about is social violence against minorities, sometimes legitimate, sometimes illegitimate. Is it done through the purview of acceptable legislation, or is it done targeted to hit them? It's difficult to say, but what's happening right now with this LGBTQ bill wave across the states is pretty unambiguously unjustified, a very deliberate targeting, and this isn't how it starts. This is the middle point. We're into it.
Let's focus in on this. So with the LGBTQ stuff, this is my point. If you go to anyone and you read them one of the bills and you say, this is violence, it's time for us to get ready to fight them, no one's going to be on board with that except for a very, very small percentage.
Fine. How about the legislation that says that...
How long am I taking off? I'm going to be off for about a week. So I'm basically going to be... you can't see because of the thing. So I'm streaming all the way up until Monday. So full streams Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then from Tuesday, I'm off. And then my first stream back is Thursday, the 2nd of June. So just over a week. Hey, Miss Fair, thanks for the 200 bits. So yeah, if I can hit this goal as well, that's gonna make it a lot more, like comfortable. It's shilling time. Okay, I'm gonna shill when
there would be attempts.
I'm gonna shill in a sec when I've got the cool thing to show you.
Violate the Interstate Commerce Clause and press charges against any person in the state who left to go to another state to get an abortion. I forget which state that was. If you take a look at that, not only can you not get an abortion in your state, you're going to be charged unconstitutionally if you get one in a different state. So essentially, you get raped and you're pregnant 2 months. You now have a choice. It's Texas apparently. You now have a choice between having an abortion in Texas illegally and hoping you don't get caught, or getting charged after you do it in a different state. Now, you really think if I walk up to this person and say, hey, they're coming for your rights, they already have taken half of them, do you really want them to get away with taking the other half? You really think that's not a resonant message?
Oh, it 100% is. And then you say, and that's why we need to get ready to fight them in the streets.
And then you give them
wow.
Then you say, then you say, hey, they are literally arresting people for miscarriages. You should probably arm yourself. You should go there and probably get to know your neighbors and make sure that you're familiar with your community, so that if the cops ever start doing raid checks to make sure that everyone who is registered pregnant still is, you're ready. If you think what I'm talking about right now is illegitimate or unreasonable, the black community did this throughout the 1960s, and they weren't all waving their little hands at the indignant.
Can we stop going back to the 60s? Do we agree in this chat that like 1960s America was a very, very different time to like America today? Like, if you were gay in the 60s, it was fucking, really bad for you then, right? Like, oh God, Jesus. I'm losing it. Oh, Vaush, what you doing? Jesus.
Of it all. Plenty of communities have done this. The queer community has done this. The trans community was probably more armed back in the 60s than they were now after Stonewall, when the very public attack on their little shindig became like the subject of national discussion. What I'm talking about right now is the behavior adopted by minority groups under threat of persecution all across the world. But what you think I'm saying is they need to start goose stepping across Main Street in little packs of 12 with their rifles, getting ready to shoot out with cops. I'm not. They just need to be ready, because things are only going to get worse, and it doesn't hurt to be safe, to know your neighbors, to have a gun and know how to use it, to stockpile ammunition, to stockpile food and water, to stockpile everything that you could need, to be fully aware of the fact that democracies have failed in other countries, and they can fail here too. There's no reason it can't. Nothing can keep it from not happening here. What will you do when democracy falls? The Republicans are ready. They have armories. They have a political party that is not only ready for, but currently enacting the end of democracy. What are Democrats? Democrats, oh, we'll get them next time. Democrats, they're not going to do anything. You have to act for yourself. You don't have this central messaging to rely on like they do. When the democracy fails, Republicans will be getting their updates from DeSantis on, like, you know, how many children they should be killing that day. We will need to be figuring
like, he's trying to act like he's just doing that. Oh, he's talking about killing children. What is going on? I'm so confused. Why right he's killing children now? What's going on? I don't know even what he means with that. Like what children are getting, like what, gay children or something? I don't fucking I don't know.
out how many, not children, we'll be needed figuring out our own stats without direct leadership, because Democrats are not set up in such a way as to orchestrate that kind of post-democratic system.
Maybe, okay, I might have Paul Zandied in there. I don't know exactly what he meant, but it was a funny moment anyway.
I hope you will excuse the hyperbole there, but the underlying message was something I sincerely believe in.
I'm just perplexed as to, like, why Vaush is going so fucking heavy.
All right. I literally, as I listen to you, I just start preparing to say what I've said a million times, so I don't feel like there's much else.
It doesn't hurt. Yeah. Do you think you
know what doesn't hurt? How you expressed it most of the times in this conversation, where you say, because again, I don't agree that you could get many people to believe in our current situation that is about to happen.
Then why does half the Republican Party think white people are under threat, despite there being zero evidence of that fact?
Well, okay, but what they're believing
What's different? Why do they keep getting away with it?
Well, they're saying, hey, because like white people's percentage in America is decreasing over a certain number of years. That's what they.
And I have nothing I can point to. Hundreds of state bills. They need no evidence at all for their entire party to get behind the idea they're under attack.
To be clear, I'm not saying like, oh, they have actual evidence. I'm saying what they're fear mongering about. They're not saying they're coming to kill white people.
They have successfully, with no evidence, convinced a significant portion of their political party that white people are under threat. If you look at polling done on conservatives, the most oppressed group that they refer to in America is consistently white people and conservatives, like 40 and 50% respectively, whereas black people and women are like 8 to 9%. They are completely on board. Tens of millions of Americans that they're under.
What poll is that? That sounds like a fucking insane poll. Who the fuck did they ask? Jesus.
For attack right now, and they do buy guns and they do buy ammo off of what? Changing demographic statistics, which don't hurt any of them. But I can point to hundreds of anti-LGBT bills passed in half a year, and that to you is not enough to convince a liberal that they're under threat?
Sorry, I read something. I just looked down. I agree they're under threat, 100%. We both agree on that. You keep saying stuff, and then I guess it's
we need to convince them, and they need to arm themselves like Republicans have.
I think our two main components, I probably disagree with you on how you message the way, or the extent to which they're under threat, because I think giving a really honest, factual kind of laying out of what's going on and expressing that to people and then saying this is what we want to do is the way to do it. I think
I'm
saying
factual.
That I think you're factual, but I'm saying like the average even person on the liberal who hears, see what they're doing to these different groups, they're about to start killing them.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't listen, if this game doesn't get downloaded, there's a chance I might die. There's a chance. There's a chance I could die. Obviously, there's a chance anyone can die at any point. But there is, to state it very plainly, if you do not download this game, there's a chance that I might die. Whether it's related to the game or not is another story, but it's a non-zero chance. It's a non-zero chance, okay?
They want us all dead. I think most people go, oh, okay, well, he's kind of like the other people who...
Why does the average conservative go for it then? Why does the average conservative require so little?
That. If they don't believe that...
the real genocide we need to be concerned about is the genocide of my income that will occur if you don't download this bloody game.
Liberals are going to kill them.
The belief that the liberal establishment is going to kill them is literally a mainstream Republican belief. Like QAnon being one thing and all, but like the idea that like that literally like conservatives have long said stuff like they want you
At least-
dead. I am borrowing their
Oh.
messaging. I'm just right when I use it.
Oh my god.
Okay,
And
I
they
mean, I'm
believe
not
it and
saying
they act on it. Why are liberals so weak? Why are they unwilling to act righteously where Republicans were, for less evidence, act unrighteously? Why are they?
This angle was way too optimistic. Maybe. The last few days, to be honest with you, my streams have been a bit weird. I mean, we're sat at like 440 odd viewers, which is pretty good. But the last few days has been, you know, I've been streaming at weird times, and I went on the Irish panel last night, which was, well, we don't talk about that. We won't talk about that again.
They so much more active and willing, even when they're wrong to do
But
so.
they're successful for their movement because they never explicitly let the
Yeah, they do go on talk radio.
Maybe
They
the
say
more-
insane shit on talk radio. Wild shit. There's fewer restrictions there when it comes to you know, what you can get away with. They say wild shit.
So then,
to
do you
millions of
feel
people.
that your job is different from every? Like, I guess when I say stuff, it's
me Vaush
assuming that I
Limbaugh.
would want. What'd you say?
Call me Vaush Limbaugh.
Exactly. Or is that no? Like, do you think you play a role in
Yes, Dr. Butter, that's the spirit.
doing something in our movement, but it not being everyone's role? Or do you genuinely believe like what you say, at least in the videos that we're kind of responding to, is something that pretty much everyone on the left should be advocating for?
I don't think everyone can advocate for it or should advocate for it the way that I do, but I think like the general messaging that I'm disseminating about getting ready and preparing and owning a gun and knowing your neighborhood and stuff, I think that every single person who's like farther left than Biden should be doing that on their messaging. I
Hmm.
want to see that shit on MSNBC. I know I won't, but
Because there,
Why the fuck would MS? Oh my god! Why would MSNBC say that? That's insane. And now we're here to report that conservatives, a portion of our audience, are gonna fucking murder you in your sleep. So fucking arm up, motherfuckers. Cocks a shotgun. Cocks a shotgun and fucking and points it into the fucking face of his co-host who leans right and blows his head off. That's how you do it, folks. Get him first.
there are tons of people the second that they're on board. I mean, they would even get on board with Bernie, but
liberals
the
are
second they see
terrified. They hate
violence,
guns. They're spooked by guns. Another reason I
right?
hate
So if we're
Democrats.
just saying, hey, just in case, is why you hate what?
Another reason I hate Democrats. It's like they've been spending the past half century deliberately grooming their voter constituency into being the weakest, most vulnerable to fascist group of babies in the universe.
Oh my god.
Lots of problems with
Lord.
the Democratic Party, but I think you maybe just don't. If you just want like your kind of group of people to be ready,
Everyone. It has to be
violence,
everyone.
that's something- well, it won't. Then okay, I guess that's what.
And we
no
can try
liberals
harder.
can
Then get
on
into
board with-
content creation and say this.
And I'm saying I'm in content creation. I'm saying that if you have a shorter path from where we are now to winning power than getting all of these liberals to want to
You can do both.
do a violent revolution.
You can do both.
You
And I
can't do
didn't say
both.
violent revolution. I just said neighborhood defense.
You've said that a bunch of times. You know that.
Not in this convo. I
Isn't that
haven't
like
used
the
the word.
ultimate- Oh yeah, maybe not this combo.
And realistically, by the way, you know, in terms of actual insurrectionary efforts, like to put aside all the memeing, I don't actually think they're really possible. Obviously, like, you know, Jan 6 aside, the idea of any coordinated political violence actually like cutting the head off of a political establishment in America would be basically impossible. It's just not something that can really be done. Also, there are so many subsidiaries and backup systems to like ensure that the presidency would continue moving forward that it wouldn't actually, like, it would be largely ineffective. The most useful thing that you could actually get armed leftists and liberals to do would be to hold out their communities when civil fighting takes place between militia groups and local neighborhoods following any kind of conflict between federal and state legislation. So the best example of this would be if the federal government passes some radically oppressive rule that a progressive state government doesn't want to follow, and there's conflict within and without the state as to whether or not that law will actually be followed, that conflict will lead to pockets of insurrectionary
I'm sure it did count, Femboy Senpai. I think as long as you click the link, it should count. But yeah.
activity and lawlessness, where right-wing groups, militias, and probably cops will work together in order to effectively secure areas under like de facto martial law. And in those environments, it is kill or be killed. And in those environments, I hope my people have guns. And by my people, I mean
Oh, Poggers, I'll
250
check that
million
after this.
Americans who don't vote red. That's mostly what I'm talking about. And whether or not they win in those pockets will play a large role in who wins over the state government, and whether or not the state government succeeds in resisting the federal will determine whether or not some broader action has to be taken, like sending in the military. But the military is majority Democrat, which makes me think they would try to stay on the side of any internal conflict. Plus, sending U.S. troops to resolve internal disputes has always been kind of a touchy issue politically. That's what I'm really talking about. So that right there, that's the actual, like, in my mind, loosely what usefulness there might be to being defensive in the context of like the end of democracy here in the States. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I
General
think
belief.
I honestly, I understand. I've talked to a lot of people who, understand that for a while the gun kind of balance was way tipped in the Republicans' direction, just because that's kind of a big Republican thing, and guns, right? And apparently, gun ownership among liberals, I think, has gone up a lot recently. And
Hell yeah, brother.
it's not like not something I'm hugely against. I think the only to kind of summarize the whole conversation is you're saying, hey, I feel like we're headed towards this, and to be prepared for that, this is the rhetoric I need to use. And I'm saying, hey, I feel like we could prevent this, but we won't be able to if people think our movement represents or is represented by your rhetoric, and that's kind of the summary. And you think, you're a little wuss-lib. Good.
I think the idea that militant groups have been electorally harmful to their general side in America have largely been overstated historically. They said that about the Black Panther Party as well, and they were wrong, of course, to do so.
Can you re-say what you just said?
Like, they said the same thing with the Black Panther Party, that their militancy was going to throw people off the civil rights movement and was going to lead to more conservatives and anti-civil rights legislation fear-mongering, and they were wrong. It turns out that racists who didn't want the civil rights movement to pass also would just accuse Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. of being militant. They didn't care. The whole civility thing was just a mirage thrown up by people concerned trolling or well-meaning liberals, who, of course, Martin Luther King roasted in his letter from a Birmingham jail. The whole, putting a timetable. But that was an issue, right? The whole, well,
Don't
maybe...
you think that if MLK's rhetoric was like the same as, that certain aspects of the Black Panthers, then he never would have rose to prominence like he did? Because part of the reason he was so effective at pressuring like LBJ and stuff is because he had a larger movement behind him than just like a sliver of the population.
I agree. He had a
lot of
larger
white
movement, which
people were on
included
board with
people
him,
like
so.
me. Diversity of tactics. You need to have people like MLK who are...
People like, oh my god. Does he realize what he sounds like when he says stuff like that? You had people like me. Like, what the fuck? Oh my god. Vaush X. Brother Vaush. Oh my god. That's a fucking great meme. I still like Vaush, by the way. I know he said some unhinged shit, but there's stuff like that. I can't hate the guy. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, it's so funny to put yourself into the Black liberation movement like that. Oh. Vaush X. Oh my god.
Are politicians, and he was, certainly, at least in his affect, capable of delivering messages in a steady, calm, and even-handed way, and you need people who put the vice on. The Republicans understand this, again, because there are crazy-ass QAnon types with a disproportionate amount of power, but they're not the ones who write the legislation within the party. And likewise, I think that we need people who are, strong advocates of, political togetherness, and I think that we need people who put the squeeze on a little bit, and I think that right now the Democrats are 100% in category A and 0% in category B, and I think that it should be, I don't know, 50-50 or 70-30. It has to be something that's not 100 and 0.
Well, okay.
I do appreciate the conversation, by the way, even if it got heated. It's been a very good one.
Oh no, it's been awesome. I love it.
That's good.
Can I ask like a completely random, possibly bothersome question?
Sure.
It's completely off topic. So I also watch your good friend Destiny,
Mhm.
of course. And one of the people he's been bringing on a lot is this Mr. Girl character.
Mhm.
And I saw you did that debate with him.
Oh.
What? I'm really confused.
Let's go. The real drama's here. The real drama's here. Let's go.
I feel like I'm going crazy when he's like, just popping off, getting more popular, talking to Destiny line. Usually Destiny seems, I probably think he's more reasonable than you think he is, but to me, Mr. Girl is so obviously like, I don't know, promoting some bizarre ideas. Like whenever y'all had your debate, and it was like, hey, under the umbrella of we're having an open conversation about people possibly being attracted to other people who are under the somewhat arbitrary line we've drawn is like the legal age or something. And he used that as a justification to get a little bit descriptively creepy and stuff about like, hey, let's fantasize about young girls. But he's not being treated like that, and it's confusing me. Have you experienced that at all? Because I know you didn't have this thing, or have you gotten more fond of him?
I definitely would put it that way. I haven't really consumed any content of his or seen him at all outside of a video done Mr. Lalonda, Old Man Lalonda, or something like that, which talked about how he's like an abuser to his girlfriend and a pedophile and blah blah blah. I don't really know the specifics. The impression that I get of him, Old Man Laundry, thank you, is that he's a legitimately
Suck it, slurp up the drama. Let's go. Woo! Woo!
bad person in a bunch of ways.
True.
But he's not stupid, and he knows that he can monetize that by leaning into it enough that his behavior comes across as self-referential and ironic. So,
Fuck Mr. Girl, am I right?
it's a really common strat for like sexist people to like, they actually do kind of dislike women, but they'll make like over-the-top sexist jokes in a way where it's like, oh, it's a joke, obviously. But,
Any Mr. Girl haters in chat? Let's fucking go.
you know, well, does he actually think like half of that or whatever? With him, I don't know what the relationship is between X and Y, but it's basically just a rehash of standard conservative, I'm joking, I'm not joking shit. He comes across as like really, really weird.
He's really going to say that after this conversation. Oh my fucking God, that's unreal. He's got no self-reflection or self-awareness. Fucking hell.
Weird to me. But he seems to be pretty genuinely like a pretty scummy person. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because
True.
yeah,
Fuck
I
that
think
guy.
there's this new.
Can I just go on record to say, fuck Mr. Girl and the horse he rode in on, okay? The horse he rode in on and probably sucked off because he's such a fucking weirdo, all right?
wave of, hey, there's a lot of these social norms that are, and a lot of this is good. Like we've talked about, you've talked about, and I've talked about a lot of the stuff around gender. Like, is this all necessary? All of these boxes and gates that we form. So then there's, especially on the left, kind of a movement of let's question norms and expectations and push the envelope a little bit. And it's interesting because that's all what kind of his thing is, hey, you know how everyone's really uncomfortable with pedophilia? Well, let's talk about it. And like, we should be able to be open about these conversations. And to me, it's like, yeah, we should, without having to get into like a weird fantasy thing. So anyways, okay, that makes me feel good.
No, you're not alone in feeling that way.
Sweet,
I mean, the whole, again, it's basically like I'm just asking questions, right? So like when neo-Nazis want to advocate for their positions, instead of like outright stating anything normatively convincing, they'll just ask like leading questions that try to bait you into certain like discussions where you have to like talk about their moral premises without them having to assume any of the positions you have to argue against to express your opinion. Yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. I don't know, it's pretty weird. We've done this song and dance before with Amos Yee back in like 2018. Were you around for that?
No.
You look younger than me.
I think the Amos Yee thing is a really weird comparison because Amos Yee was actually advocating for dropping the age of consent. Right? Like Amos Yee was going on to streams and basically going literally like, yeah, we should drop the age of consent. That would be fucking based. It's like, that's a bit different to being like, hey, you know, we call everyone a pedophile, but we don't always use it accurately. And if you do have these urges, it can be very bad for you. Whatever he fucking says, you know. I think we should increase the age of consent to 50. Anyway, what are we doing?
He's a Singaporean guy. He was friends with Sargon of Akkad. He was a not pedophile who very adamantly argued about how the
No, he fucking was, wasn't he? Wasn't he like a pedo from the start? But people didn't realise. I don't know. Oh.
age of consent was oppressive or whatever the fuck. And then he got arrested for CP like a year ago or something. So yeah.
Oh, and did he talk to Destiny?
Yes, funnily, Destiny was one of the people who said this is bullshit. The skeptics are giving cover to this pedophile by being buddy with him and not taking the argument seriously. I will take the argument seriously. So
okay, yeah.
You know, the grand scales of reality, you know, tilt ever more in someone's favor, not mine, certainly. But yeah, anyway. I do appreciate the convo.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a wonderful rest of your day. And
there
bye-bye.
you go.
See ya.
I feel like you guys were too mean. I actually enjoyed that conversation a lot. I also know there are going to be people in my chat who disagree with my perspective, so I'm happy to answer questions from anyone who disagrees with me. Obviously, stuff like this,
smart kid, for sure.
You know, conversations like this always come across as a little bit.
Although I don't know how old he is. I don't like calling people a kid. It feels a bit weird. But yeah, smart lad.
How would you put it? A little bit speculative. Hey, Shu. A little bit speculative and a little bit kind of abstract in a LARPy way. It's just I feel like the idea that something like that could never happen here is really just a product of American exceptionalism, because it totally can. You know, not only has America come very close before.
The thing is like I don't think it's about saying it could. That's a bit of a straw man to say. It's not to say it can never happen, right? It's just, is it happening now? There's two different things there. Could fascism ever take hold of America? Yeah, sure. Why not? Is it happening right now? If you answer no to that question, that doesn't mean that you're saying no, it can never happen. You're just saying, I don't think it's happening now. But yeah. I think Vaush was like a bit, was Vaush that bad? He was a bit harsh at times, but yeah, I don't know. He was kind of like a bit mean.